You're listening to the Plain Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carl Stebbings and Matt Smith.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 172 of the Plain Talking UK podcast.
It was nearly 169 again.
I know. I'm Carl Stebbings, and joining me in the lounge studio this evening is my co-host Matt Smith.
Yes, well, hello everyone. Hello. It's a very nice evening out there. It's just, I'm surprised we're not outside. Actually.
Not that they'd see because the curtains are shut behind us. But
yeah, I know. But your camera was whiting out. So
it is a nice evening outside. So welcome everyone who's joined us in the chat room this evening. It is the 7th of July, just coming up to 7:15 in the evening here in the UK. And we've got a massively, awesomely packed show this evening.
We have, yes, a full house.
We've got a special guest joining us today. And
he's probably regretting his decision already.
Is he still there, Matt?
Yeah, I don't know. Is he still there? Are you still there, guest? He's hiding his face.
He's hiding his face.
Absolutely.
But we have got our newest addition to the PTUK team, and he's joined us. Well, he's probably regretting that as well now, actually. But the newest addition to our PTUK family team of hosts. So welcome on this week, Mr. Neville Bounds.
Yeah, hi Carlos, hi Matt. Thanks ever so much indeed for inviting me on, and thank you very much for making me a full-time member of the team. I'm absolutely delighted to be here, and I was very flattered that you asked me.
That's
really nice of you. So looking forward to it.
Although Micah is a little bit disappointed because I think he was kind of hoping that with your involvement that the little gremlins that we usually have before we start the show would have all been ironed out. But
we'll come on to that later.
Yes, I'm going to be corrected. Don't worry, everyone. It'll be like a well-oiled machine before we know it.
I hope not. You don't put oil in a PC. No, it'd be terrible.
Start.
So joining us as well, guest host this week. He's been on a few times already, but everyone knows him. Everyone loves him.
Yes.
He is the king of Harpjet. So welcome on to the show, Mr. Eoin.
Hi guys, thanks for having me on once again.
Mr. Eoin. What's Mr. Eoin? I can't say. It's because of the spelling.
If I said his surname, I would get it hideously wrong.
What, Shimizu?
Yes,
it's really not that hard.
It's not. It's pronounced exactly as it's spelled.
Don't get me wrong. If you ask Starbucks to put it on a cup for you, that may be more of a challenge. But
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. How are you, by the way, Nav?
Yes, I mean, actually, although there is some sort of aviation relevance, isn't there, to Nav as opposed to Nev, so I suppose it's something, but you'd think they could get a three-letter word.
So for anyone else who's listening to the show who has been to Starbucks and had their name mauled by a member of Starbucks on a cup, send your pictures in. We'd love to see them.
Yeah, well, indeed.
Could do a top 10, couldn't we?
We could, yeah, absolutely, of the most silliest names. Although we probably should keep things what I'd like to refer to as aviation related, perhaps.
I know. We couldn't get
having already been ticked off last week for talking about food too much during the show. But
exactly. Well, we couldn't get any more aviation related than with our guest, who's very kindly joined us via Skype tonight. He's a full-time flight instructor. He started flying at the age of 15 and finished his pilot certificate in college. He has degrees in electrical engineering, psychology, and an MBA. He spent 25 years working in sales and marketing for Hewlett-Packard. 12 years ago, he left Hewlett-Packard and now devotes full-time teaching flying, writing, consulting, and giving speeches and seminars. He's also written 2 books, including Max Trescott's G1000 Glass Cockpit Handbook, now in its 5th edition.
Oh, wow.
He holds an ATP certificate for all 4 airplane categories. He specialises in teaching in Cirrus aircraft and is also type rated on the Phenom 100 and Eclipse jets. In 2008, he was named the by the FAA as the National Certificated Flight Instructor of the Year to represent the 96,000 flight instructors in the US. You may know him as Max West from the Airplane Geeks podcast. Yes, I do. And he now hosts as well his own podcast called the Aviation News Talk, in which he shares general aviation news from around the world, plus pilot skills and safety tips. A great show which I listen to. So welcome onto the show, Max Trescott.
Wow, hey, I'm happy to be here. I've watched you guys in the past, and it's going to be fun to be part of the menagerie.
I think the correct term is
He meant
chaos.
chaos.
Yeah,
He meant
absolutely.
chaos.
Yeah.
So how are things with you, Max? Whereabouts in the good old US are you?
Well, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, right down in Silicon Valley. So I'm in the town that nobody ever heard of until Google came around, called Mountain View. So this is where Google is headquartered. And I do most of my teaching out of the Palo Alto Airport, which is the home of Stanford. So it's nestled about halfway between San Francisco and San Jose. Very, very pleasant weather here. It never gets too hot, too cold. So it's just it's a fun place to be.
In other words, it's great flying weather, Max.
That's the thing. I used to live on the East Coast, and it seemed like a third of the time flights would get canceled. Out here, I would say it's VFR 97% of the time, so it's pretty spectacular for flying.
Oh, sounds good. Have you done any flying in the last few days, Max, or you been office bound?
Yeah, I had 2 flights yesterday. So typically I fly 5 to 6 days a week. I always take Saturdays off and usually part of Sunday. But, the funny thing, it doesn't really, well, don't tell my clients this. It doesn't feel like work. I would hate to tell them stop paying me.
Don't open that can of worms.
I don't think the life of a flight instructor could ever be dull. Every day you're doing a job you love.
Yeah, and a lot of people kind of worry. It's like, oh, are people always trying to kill you? And or you blah blah blah. And I can't even think of a time when I felt like I was in mortal danger, in the aircraft. So anyway, it is a heck of a lot of fun. It's kind of like having an office with the windows on all 4 sides. So I love the view, and that's half the fun, is just kind of watching the world go by.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining us again, Max. We're going to have a good old chat with you later on the show. But is everyone's had a good week? We're now obviously Friday, end of the week. Matt, you've had a exciting week unpacking boxes after you moved into your new house last week.
Pretty much. And I've been doing a lot of that job that I don't do anymore.
Oh, the job you don't do.
I've been doing a lot of that this week. But it's been good fun. It's my personal thanks, obviously. This guy here, Mr. Carlos, was an absolute legend. This week just gone, sort of moving house and stuff. It's just been absolutely crazy. I seriously, I hate moving house. I don't know why people, these people that do it like every
what you mean, like I used to for a living?
Like every couple. Yeah, I know, but which is why, because he used to work for a removal company, so you can imagine him putting the skills he had in putting everything in boxes and stuff. I've never seen a Luton van loaded like it. It was award winning. But yes, so it's been it's absolute chaos. But I can't wait to actually spend some time in my house.
Excellent,
that'll be nice.
So Nev, how's things with you? Busy week? Obviously, you've
been very, actually. Yeah, starting on Sunday, went down to Captain Nick's house for a very nice barbecue, and Stuart Aslett, Adam Spink, and his wife. Stuart's wife Nina, and the lovely Liz Piper, who'd come over as well. So we started off with that, and then Liz spent a couple of days with us up here at the house, and then she flew back yesterday. So it's been a week of fat food, actually. I feel so I've put on about 20 kilos, so I basically can't eat until further notice.
Right, okay. Can't eat until Christmas. Yeah,
that's definitely one garden I'd like to have been in this week. I think with all that Aviation, you got Adam Spink and obviously Nick and yourselves there. I bet there was a few aviation related stories banging around the garden.
It was great, actually, and of course the weather was perfect. It could not have been better. So we've had a very good week here for weather, as you know. So it's been absolutely sublime.
I know we've been breaking records here and there. I mean, it's like we've been having sunshine that other countries aren't having at the moment. It's been very strange.
Owen, whereabouts have you been this week? I'm going to guess Malaga.
No, I haven't been to Malaga. I haven't been to Spain at all this week, actually. Today we went to Perugia, which is in the middle of Italy. And since the last show, I've been to Poland, definitely, and I went to Oslo as well.
Oslo?
Oslo? Yeah.
Blimey.
Yeah.
Bit chilly up there.
It's actually a short enough flight. It's about an hour and a half, maybe even a little bit less. Yeah. Very busy.
Very good, very good. Well, there we go. Tell you, it's all happening here.
I know it is.
I know. I tell you, there's no need to leave the UK. The weather's so good here. You don't need to go on holiday or anywhere.
Yeah.
I know it actually is better in the UK than in some places. Perugia was a bit of an exception today.
Yeah, no, keep it
a
secret.
Come here on holiday. Right, so we are going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Matt.
Yes, I am, definitely, yes.
And if you're ready, Nev.
Yep, totally.
And Owen.
Yep.
Max?
All ready to go.
Let's go. So kicking off this week's first news story then, and this one is on the Chicago Tribune. And the headline, regional airlines want to cut co-pilot flight rules. The idea mustn't get off the ground. So the story goes then, the airline travellers are willing to compromise on personal comfort and convenience in return for lower fares and regularly scheduled flights. But I doubt the flying public would agree to deeply discount their own safety by letting the government hack away at an essential industry standard designed to protect flyers from inexperienced pilots. That's why it's important to defeat a proposal before Congress that seeks to water down federal requirements necessary to become an airline pilot. The plan calls for diminishing the 1,500 hours of actual flying time required and substituting some of that with time with classroom and on-the-ground training. Who's backing the idea? For one, regional airlines that primarily serve smaller markets and often have marketing agreements with big carriers like United and American Airlines. The regionals say they're reeling from a shortage of pilots, and changing this training requirement will help prime the hiring pump. Strongly disagreeing with that business logic is Illinois' Sen Tamworth Duckworth, a former Illinois Army National Guard combat pilot who's leading the charge against this legislation. And he says that I want regionals to fly out of Paroya Decatur, but let's not do it at the cost of safety, the senator told me. Nevertheless, the measure recently passed a Senate panel and could be attached up to an upcoming Federal Aviation Administration reauthorization bill. The pilot provision passed the committee 14-13 along party lines, with Republicans voting in favor of the measure sponsored by Senator John Thune, a South Dakota Republican. Most people, including the majority lawmakers voting for this effort, know nothing about flying an aeroplane. The closest I've seen to a cockpit is peering into them between saying hello to a flight attendant and taking my seat on a plane. So when it comes to airline safety, I'll take the word of experienced pilots like Duckworth and Airline Pilots Association, which represents 57,000 pilots in the US and Canada, and it's against the cutback. Also fighting this proposal FAA change is Chesley Sullenberger, better known as Sully, the captain of US Airways Flight 1549, that in 2009 made that all too well-known emergency landing in the Hudson River. And Sully is also an air safety advocate and consultant. And I mean, the story goes on. It says here that Congress hiked to 1,500 hours from 250 hours, the minimum amount of in-the-air training for co-pilots, also known as first officers. Well, obviously this is over your side of the pond to say, Max. What are your feelings on the flight rules and the hours and stuff?
Well, this particular hike to 1,500 hours and an ATP requirement to get into the right seat of original jet came about, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago in the aftermath of the Colgan Air crash, which was back in 2009, I believe. And the ironic thing is that both pilots in that aircraft had much more than 1,500 hours. And yet folks kind of make it out as, some magic number where, wow, you got to have this much or you're not safe. And I just, what the article really doesn't say is, in a sense, they'd be in some ways rolling things back to where they were. And I don't know that things were necessarily unsafe when people could get into the right seat of an airliner with less than 1,500 hours. So, yeah, I understand a lot of people are strongly invested in this on both sides. I don't think that we're going to see a decrease in safety if they lessen the requirements.
It says here as well, Max, on the story about the amount of pay that the regional pilots get, and it's quite shocking actually, $22,000 annually, according to the Airline Pilots Association. Is that round about roughly what it is?
I would say that's about what it was 1 to 2 years ago. There have been considerable increases in the last 12 to 18 months. I would say that, from what I'm hearing talking with people, the number is probably closer to 30 to 35,000. SkyWest, I know, which is the largest regional here, did a large increase in salaries the past year. So, yeah, I think that number is probably a little out of date.
Obviously, Owen, you want to progress. I think, don't you? You've sort of got your hopes set on possibly becoming a pilot in the future. So this obviously the rules and stuff are kind of similar in the UK, but this hasn't.
They aren't. I mean, like if you take for example a lot of the world's leading airlines in safety, a lot of whom are low-cost carriers, you've got quite a few of those hiring pilots who have less than 1,500 hours here on this side of the Atlantic, and it really boils down to how they're trained within the airline. If the airline has a really really good, training system, which my company really really does, I don't think it's absolutely necessary to have those 1,500 hours.
No. I mean, I suppose you could argue. I mean, the trouble is it's all very well these companies insisting on this, but I mean, you've got to gain your experience somehow, and surely the easiest way to do that is. I mean, I'm not saying be like the captain or whatever, but I mean, surely there's less of a risk if you've got an experienced captain and then a first officer maybe who's sort of in the chair. I mean, that may be something Max can answer better than me, but I mean, surely you've got to get your hours somehow, and I don't know, is it just people being sort of overly nervous? I mean, you must have got certain skills and qualifications to have got so far in the first place to actually get your license. I mean,
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, when you look at what Stuart's done to get his, he's now moving into the regional jets here in the UK. And I would imagine, I'm fairly confident Stuart's probably got more than 1,500 hours in his logbook, albeit on a caravan,
on a Cessna caravan.
But it's incredibly hard to get to that stage, and the money as well. It's not cheap to learn to fly, because a lot of the I think a lot of the training that the airlines do, some of the airlines actually you have to pay for your own training, which is not always brilliant.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next story, Matt, this is for you, this one.
This is indeed, this is story number 2, always seems to be Ryanair related. I'm never quite sure why. Travel Daily News is the website, and the headline is 93% of Ryanair passengers satisfied with flight experience.
Only 93?
Only 93. Okay. I believe these are their own statistics as well, aren't they, from what I was learning earlier. Anyway, Ryanair released its quarterly Rate My Flight statistics, which show that 93% of surveyed customers, so that's not all the customers, that's only 93% of those that were surveyed, were happy with their overall flight experience in April, May and June 2017. Some 150,000 customers used the Rate My Flight function in the Rate My Fight. That's after a beer or two.
That is
that
Jet 2 one.
That sounds like a Jet 2 story. That does, yeah. I put myself off my own stride there. So service on board and range of food and drinks on a 5-star rating system, ranging from 1 star for okay to 3 stars for good. So there isn't one there for it was crap. Anyway, up to 5 stars for. So right, I see. So 1 star is okay. Not this was appalling, it nearly killed me, up to excellent at number 5. So some 93% of respondents rated their overall trip excellent / very good / good, recording similar ratings for boarding 87%, crew friendliness 95%, service on board 93%, and range of food and drink 81%. Rate My Flight is available in Dutch, English, French, German, Greek, Italian, Polish and Spanish via the Ryanair app, which can be downloaded from iTunes and Google Play stores. I'm not going to read any more of that because it's obviously a little bit of Ryanair blowing their own trumpet.
Basically, I'm guessing then that this is a function on their app, on the Ryanair app, that you can click on and then rate your...
Now, the only thing I would say against this, the bit that makes me a little bit nervous, is, I mean, there's quite a lot, 150,000 passengers, given how many that particular airline carry on a sort of monthly basis. I would argue that's not...
Roughly 12 million passengers a month.
Yes. So actually, 150,000. But you'll forgive me being a little sceptical here that there's 150,000 people were surveyed, and only 93% of them were happy. But yes. Anyway, enough. I'll move on, shall I? Who's going to take the next story?
Well, I was going to say, I was going to say actually, Max. I'm guessing you. I mean, you must have travelled in the Europe and the I would imagine in the UK. Have you ever had had a trip on a Ryanair flight?
Well, I don't want to say anything bad, but I am related to Michael O'Leary, so I think it's great.
Oh no! Okay, that's outrageous.
No, I'm kidding. Not true. But
No,
yeah,
okay.
We certainly hear all kinds of stories about them. I haven't had the pleasure of flying them, but I was kind of wondering if maybe the people who rated this were only allowed to rate it before the flight departed. They want to give it a good rating.
Yeah.
They want to get there safely, so they gave it a good rating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in case they're reading the results before they get on board.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Of course, in the U.S., if you gave them a bad result, you would get pulled off the aircraft.
Well,
hopefully,
absolutely.
Hopefully not beaten.
No. Okay. Yes, careful now. We're in dangerous territory. Moving on.
So the next story is
Quick, someone. Yes.
is for you, Nev.
Yeah.
It's a British Airways story, which is nice.
Kelsey Breeze. Yeah. Is it a nice British Airways story?
Well, at the moment it is, but of course there's always other stories relating to that airline.
Yeah.
This is from the Sun Sentinel website, and it's a new service that British Airways are launching or have launched between Fort Lauderdale and London with use of wide-bodied jet service between the two destinations. And the airline's new year-round route between Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood International Airport and London's Gatwick Airport is scheduled to operate 4 days a week using 275-seat passenger Boeing 777-200 aircraft. The jetliner has a 3-class configuration with 48 business, 24 premium economy and 203 economy class seats, British Airways says. In-flight offerings will include free meals, snacks and beverages and a full-service bar, but not in the economy bit, I'm sure. But anyway, we'll come back to that. Possibly.
Yeah, but Muggle class doesn't deserve it. Let's be honest.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And anyway, BA joins Scandinavian low-cost airline Norwegian Air Shuttle in offering South Floridians and travellers from Fort Lauderdale a non-stop service to Gatwick, which is London's second largest international airport. Our research and intelligence tells us there is a demand in Fort Lauderdale both in and out and for business and leisure, said Doug Keynes, the British Airways Vice President of Operations, Safety and Business Development during launch festivities at Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood. When asked if demand for the route had been impacted following recent terrorism-related incidents in London this year, Keynes replied, no, London and the UK really are definitely open for business. We're very happy with the bookings we've received so far. And so with Fort Lauderdale, British Airways is now serving 4 airports in Florida, with each offering different connecting opportunities for travellers, Keynes noted. And in South Florida, BA has long served London Heathrow Airport from Miami and also flies to Gatwick from Orlando and Tampa. And with the 4 markets, the carrier now offers more seats to London from Florida than any other carrier, Keynes said. I'm just going to skip on a little bit because it does go on a bit. But the other thing that they're saying is that there's a massive British community in the region, and I'm sure they're going to take advantage of this direct flight, says Roy Yates, who's president of the British American Chamber of Commerce, based in Lighthouse Point. And on Thursday, Fort Lauderdale Hollywood officials marked the arrival of British Airways' first flight from London with a water cannon salute. That followed a ribbon-cutting ceremony at the gate in Terminal 4 before the first flight left Fort Lauderdale to London. And I think that that's going to be quite a popular service, actually, by the sounds of things. And the flight's scheduled to depart on Thursdays, Saturdays and Sundays and Tuesdays at 5 p.m. and arrive in London at 6:30 the next day. The westbound flight leaves London at 9:25 a.m. with scheduled arrivals in Fort Lauderdale at 1:45 p.m. So that sounds quite an interesting new service for them. I hope it does well.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, Nev. I'd imagine that give it a few more months or so, that BA might even put the Dreamliner on that route as well.
Yeah, I think so. And the 777 is going to be a little bit tired now for BA. They have done some refits recently, but it's getting on a bit now. So as they order more product, and also the A350 as well coming into service, that we might see that on the route as well, possibly.
Yeah, BA. I think they got some of them on order. The
I believe
350s.
they have, yes.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
I was just wondering. They said they did a water cannon salute. You don't suppose that's because it was 40 degrees down there that day in Florida?
Yeah.
Just trying to cool it all down a bit.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little warm down there in the summertime.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, there's been issues actually in the last few weeks with it's too hot to fly for certain aircraft. So
really?
Yeah.
Is there a sort of like a max temperature?
There is a
then?
max. I didn't know there is actually a max temperature that aircraft can operate.
Yeah, there's max temperature. In terms of, well, obviously it depends how long the runway is and that kind of thing. But also, I think there's a max temperature for fuel in the aircraft. Although there are fuel cooling systems, and I think if it gets beyond certain limits, you're not allowed to operate
Fly
the aircraft. It's part of the standard operating procedures.
Yeah, the ones they had the biggest problem with a week or two ago were a Bombardier, because their regional jets are only spec'd up to 118 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you get above that, there are no performance tables. You don't know what settings to use. So for probably about 2 days, they canceled 40 flights out of Phoenix. American Airlines just went ahead and canceled them ahead of time.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, but as you say, actually, although the aircraft may have had the performance in it to do it, but actually there's no performance tables
exactly
beyond that temperature range. So.
Yeah, so you can either be a test pilot or you could just sit on the ground, which is the smart thing to do.
And who's going to be brave enough to do that with an aeroplane full of passengers?
not if you want to keep your license.
At 118 degrees, that's going to be ridiculously uncomfortable in the cabin as well.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine working in that amount of heat.
I'd say it's just as well it wasn't a water foam cannon salute, which happened a while back, didn't they? Had an aircraft that was showered with fire retardant.
Oh no!
foam.
Yes, that was a bit of a whoops, wasn't it? Yes, all in the engine. Yes, indeed.
So moving on to the next story, and this story is all for you, Max.
Well, we're talking about the Cirrus jet, right?
Yeah, that's the
Certainly are.
Oh man, I sat in this thing a couple of weeks ago in Knoxville, which is the delivery center for Cirrus. Very, very cool aircraft. So Cirrus is marketing the Vision SF-50 as a plane that dramatically cuts the cost of buying a jet. It comes with a $2 million price tag, and they say they're less expensive than their nearest jet-powered competitor, which, by the way, is because they're the only single-engine jet. All the other light jets out there are twins, so that's why this is less expensive. And they say it competes in the VLJ, or very light jet category, against models like the Eclipse, Cessna Citation M2, and the Embraer Phenom 100. These jets generally don't require a professional pilot or co-pilot. Well, let's examine that statement for a moment. I'd like to think that anybody who is flying one of these jets considers themselves a professional.
A professional, yes, absolutely.
But I think what I mean by that is that they're targeted toward owners who will fly the aircraft themselves.
Right. Yeah.
Maximum range of about 1,300 miles, which is from the marketing department. And what I mean by that is there's always a trade-off between the number of passengers you would take and the amount of fuel you'll carry on board. So yeah, if you were light on passengers, full on fuel, you could make it out to 1,300 miles. And Cirrus Vice President says the jet created its own category. There's no one else there, which is absolutely true. And it's aimed at both the business executive and the pleasure pilot. Now, this part I totally agree with. With enormous windows, a spacious cabin that resembles the inside of a large SUV, it was designed to provide a luxury experience that's a far cry from flying a commercial jet. And when I sat in this thing, I was just stunned. It is so easy to get into, and when you're inside, you have tons of cabin space. It's just a really, really remarkable aircraft.
Because looking at the picture, Max, it doesn't look... the picture it shows on here doesn't look that big. It doesn't look like it would be, cavernous inside. But
it is. So it's going to be a little bit more narrow in the back. But where I was sitting up in the front row, boy, you just have a tremendous amount of space. And I'll give you a good comparison. I've spent some time in Cessna Citations, and I'm 6 feet tall, and literally it takes me about 60 seconds to try and get into the front seat of a Cessna Citation. I mean, it's that cramped, and I'm sure they designed it that way years ago to keep the aircraft narrow so they could get better performance. With the Cirrus, you just have a lot of room up there. You're not cramped at all. You just kind of hop in and hop out. I mean, it's a remarkable experience.
Wow. And you're lucky enough to have bought on one. I'm
yeah,
jealous.
so I was back at the factory. I was teaching, and they had customer jet number 1 was there in the shop. So we did a podcast show for Aviation News Talk where I sat with couple of their directors, and we kind of talked about the airplane. So that V-tail on the back, they needed that because of the single-engine jet is mounted on the on the back of the aircraft. So if you had a conventional tail, you'd be shooting hot gases right at the vertical the vertical stabilizer, which could be a problem, after an hour or so of that. But those V-tailed stabilizers, those things, they don't look that big, but they're about 10 feet tall each. So that tail is really pretty big.
Another thing I noticed as well, Max, on the photographs on this site of the interior on the actual flight deck of the aircraft, it's amazingly car-like, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Very, very much like you're sitting in a car. Apart from you haven't got a steering wheel, you've got side sticks, but air vents. You've got obviously your trim wheel. I think it's a trim wheel, isn't it, on the center pedestal there? But everything is very It's almost. I'll tell you what this is almost like. Going back to the 80s, it's almost like Knight Rider.
Oh wow, that is going back. Yeah,
was that the talking car kit and so
yeah,
that's it.
That's the one. Yeah.
I remember. Okay, I've heard about that show. I'm not old enough to have actually seen it when it was in production. Kidding there, of course. Yeah, no, I made the same comment when I climbed into it partway through. I said to the guy sitting next to me, I said, wow, this looks like it was designed to feel like a car. And, you look at the little vents on the far right. It's like, whoa, that looks like the vent in the car. The cockpit, all the controls are, concentrated in the center. It's not like your typical jet where you have, switches that go from, 1 foot to the left of you to 1 foot to the right of you. It's wall-to-wall bank of switches. They use touch screens very well to just minimize the total number of controls that are required. So it's incredibly clean layout.
How much does one of these set you back, Max? Do you know off the top of your?
Yeah, $2 million is $2 million. What they're doing right now. And unfortunately, if you want to buy one, you're looking at about a 6-year wait. I think they've got about a backlog
6 years.
of. Yeah, I think the backlog is either 600 or 700 aircraft. I forget which it is. And they're going to build maybe about 35 this year, 80 next year, and then 100 in each of the subsequent years.
But I'm just putting that for those of you watching in YouTube now. Obviously, if you are listening to the audio version of this show, then take yourself to the show notes. I'll put the links in there. But it's basically the USA Today. So if you look for the name of this plane, I mean, honestly, it's a stunning
really
little aeroplane.
Yeah.
It really is, isn't it? It just looks really nice. It's been well engineered, I think.
You'll have to start saving up now, Nev.
Yes, that's going to take a while, isn't it? Well, it'd take me more than 6 years to save $2 million.
Absolutely, yeah.
Or $2 million, or $2 million of any currency, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
We haven't even talked about the most amazing feature, which is the only jet that has a parachute, and it's mounted in the up in the nose.
It's a serious.
And so
I'm not sure that fills me with the greatest. As a nervous flyer, I'm not sure that fills me with the greatest amount of confidence. I have to be honest. It suggests that they don't have confidence in their own product. If that makes sense.
It's an amazing thing that Cirrus done with with their aircraft, the SR-22, and that. If you've seen the YouTube videos of these and stuff, I mean, they have saved lives.
Many.
At the end of the
It's
day,
quite
many lives.
remarkable, and that's why the accident rate on the Cirrus is lower than any other general aviation. Well, lower than the average of all other general aviation aircraft. So it is statistically one of the safest aircraft with one of the lowest fatality rates. And if you go back 3-4 years ago, that was not the case. There used to be more fatal accidents than parachute pulls, and then they really put an emphasis on training, and now there are more parachute pulls than fatal accidents, and the rate is fatal accident rate is really, really low. So I think this was a good thing to put on the jet. It just takes some of the same safety features that they've proven and applied them to their largest plane. What's really fascinating is there were 1 or 2 pulls on the Cirrus where people were too fast and their parachute shredded. This aircraft is built so that when you pull the handle, the airplane then goes through a slowing process, and it doesn't release the chute until it has slowed the aircraft slow enough to deploy it.
Really? Wow. Now that is clever. That is clever.
We'll talk about
that is incredible technology.
I know. We'll grill Max on the finer details of that later. So moving on to the next story. This one is on the aviationanalyst.net site. It's the headline: Improved Sonica 200.
Are you not going to let Owen have a go?
Oh, is Owen? Have I missed Owen?
It's a bit rude, isn't it?
Have you read your show notes?
Yeah. You know those show notes you were complaining about? Yeah. Never mind. You basically mix. You got 4 and 5 the wrong way around.
I've got 4 and my 5 the wrong way around.
Yes,
that's why I'm
so, Owen, perhaps you would
carry on. Max was a much better place to talk about to talk about the Cirrus. This is from the Aviation Analysis Wing, and it says improved Sonica at 200 achieves first flight. Belgium-based Sonica Aircraft has commenced flight testing of improved version of its Sonica 200 light single two-seater aircraft. Compared to the first amateur construction prototype unveiled in 2015, the improved variant have 80% of the structure redesigned to meet market and EASA certification requirements. The flight test aircraft 2, which was assembled in Sonica's Gossais
Good luck with that.
factory, I think, in Belgium, took to the skies on its maiden flight on June the 20th. The 4-month flight test campaign will be carried out in Belgium and in France in Avignon, and the flight test aircraft 1 is entirely dedicated for ground tests. The ground and flight trials are being conducted with the aim of obtaining EASA certification by September, so that's pretty quick actually. And the shape of the aircraft, the wing profile, and the choice of materials have been maintained. The redesign enabled a 750 kilogram maximum takeoff mass with a 4.4 G load factor, a 25% increase compared to the initial aircraft. The structures have been reinforced. The main spars of the wing, the connection to the fuselage, and the central spar have been redesigned, and some aluminium alloys have been modified in order to take account of the aerodynamic loads, material fatigue, as well as corrosion-related aspects. The changes also focus on strengthening the canopy arches, the landing gear, and the vertical and horizontal empennage, including its connection to the fuselage. The propeller, the braking system, as well as the instrumentation and fuel system has also been strengthened. The Sonica 200 is a low-wing, side-by-side seat, fully metallic aircraft intended for pilot training and leisure flights, equipped with a fixed tricycle landing gear with a steerable nose gear. Its conventional structure is composed of advanced aluminum, alloy frames, stringers and sheets, which will provide very effective corrosion protection. All of its control surfaces are actuated through push rod mechanisms. The aircraft features certified brakes, electrical flaps, and Garmin instrumentation. It's designed for a cruise speed of 115 knots and can achieve a climb rate of 750 feet per minute. The multi-fuel 115 horsepower Rotax 914 piston engine consumes 20 litres of fuel per hour and enables 800 nautical miles flight range. And according to the Sonica's website, you can pre-order this from only €175,000.
Well, it's a bit cheaper than the other aeroplane. Not as nice though, is it? Let's be honest. I mean, I put a couple of photos up whilst we were talking about
I'd love to fly. I'd love to go in that, trying in that.
Dude, you would be happy flying a washing machine if it had wings on it. Let's be honest.
No, a paper aeroplane. Paper airplane.
Indeed.
Is this
you don't really care as long as you're behind the controls of an aeroplane.
Exactly. Is this aircraft you're well versed on, Max?
You know, actually, it is one that we talked about in this week's show. So I had an unusual amount of international news. I had, believe it or not, 2 stories from Belgium this week. So yeah, try to make a good sampling of general aviation news from around the world each week.
Oh, good. And given the chance, I suppose you'll no doubt get a chance to fly one of these at some point, I'd imagine, Max, if they make their way over to the US.
Well, sure. I mean, once they finally get one that'll fly far enough to get across the ocean.
You never know.
Anything
could happen. So moving on.
It definitely looks like a very, very good aircraft to fly in. It certainly looks well built.
A good trainer. Good trainer.
Yeah, very good trainer. It's built for slow speeds and lots of aerobatics, or well, not quite aerobatics, but high G loads, and yeah.
It's a shame it's a low wing, but there we go.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll stick with the 150, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever.
I've had a go at flying a low wing aircraft. It was strange.
I have too, actually.
Yeah, that was when Captain Al came down last summer.
Oh, in the little Piper 20.
Piper, yeah.
Piper 28.
Piper 28. Yeah, PA 28. Yeah.
Get me?
It. I know. So he does listen.
This is where Captain Al will actually pop up in the chat room and say, no, it was a Piper 40 something or other instead. But anyway, yeah, it was definitely a Piper. I know that much.
So moving on to the next story on the commercial.
You can take this one if you like.
Is this yours?
No, it's yours.
The commercial. I'm gonna kick you in a minute.
Oh,
the
dear.
commercial appeal. Oh, there we go. The commercial appeal, part of the USA Today networks. The headline, Boeing FedEx announce big cargo freighter has next flying test bed. So the Boeing 777 made for FedEx Express will be the latest in the aircraft manufacturer's Eco Demonstrator series of planes designed to test emerging technologies. The company said the plane, featuring propulsion advancements and flight deck innovations, will undergo 3 months of testing next year before returning to the FedEx fleet. Key features will include a Boeing-developed compact thrust reverser design to save fuel, flight deck improvements to increase efficiency of operations at busy airports, and flying prototype airplane parts using manufacturing techniques that reduce material waste. It's the 5th aircraft and the first for FedEx in the Eco Demonstrator program, which creates flying test beds to improve environmental performance and safety of the future of airplanes. The program began in 2011 with an American Airlines next generation 737-800 aircraft. FedEx is committed to developing and implementing innovation solutions that connect the world responsibly and resourcefully, FedEx President and Chief Executive David Cunningham said in a release. We're proud to work with Boeing and use our 777 freighter to play a key role in bringing future benefits to the entire aviation industry, Cunningham said. Mike Sinnott, Vice President of Boeing Commercial Aircraft Product Development, said the Eco Demonstrator program is focused on harvesting exciting new technologies that will benefit our airline customers and the flying public and the environment. The Boeing 777 freighter is FedEx's largest and longest range aircraft, capable of connecting the world hub in Memphis non-stop to cargo hubs in Europe, China and the Middle East. The company had 30 777s in its 657 aircraft fleet as of May the 31st, with deliveries of 16 scheduled by 2022. Wow. Are you right there?
600.
Yes, all good.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonder what you're doing there, man.
Yeah.
I was getting worried.
No, it's all right. It's fine.
So basically, it's all about the eco. I mean, airlines are trying to be more,
So I should just explain.
eco-friendly.
Basically, why Carlos is getting a bit distracted is because my laptop keeps crashing. You know that wonderful Windows product that I
yes.
keep whinging about most weeks. I know, indeed. And basically, it's getting its own back and it keeps crashing. So I'm having to load the stories up, ladies and gentlemen, on my mobile phone so that I can still participate in the show. But anyway, there we are. Yeah, actually. So while I've got all the tech working, shall I perhaps press on with the next story?
Yeah, you can do the next story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna
borrow mine.
Yeah, thank you very much, Max. You're a scholar and a gent. Now, eagle-eyed viewers, this is on the standard.
Don't tell him. Just carry on. Let's see who notices in the chat room.
Okay, all right. So I've got a special picture that I'm going to put up whilst I'm reading the story.
Make sure you listen to Matt's headline.
Yes,
of this
indeed.
story.
So this is the Evening Standard. This is the newspaper that is currently edited by our ex-Chancellor of the Exchequer here in the UK, who has obviously done his research thoroughly. The Evening Standard is the newspaper. Do you know what's so sad? Even I spotted this. So, guys in the chat room, if you don't get this, I'm going to be very disappointed in you. Here we go. Right.
Here we go.
So
I'm watching the chat
I'll
room.
put the picture up and start reading, shall I?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Put the picture up. Right.
There we go. Passengers using budget airline Monarch can now bid
What
against
airline was
each.
that?
That was Monarch.
Oh, right, okay.
Can now bid against each other for extra legroom. The airline launched the two new features for passengers today, called the Extra Comfort Seat and a bid for extra legroom feature. It will see customers battling it out online for extra spaces or upgraded seats. Customers will be able to purchase as many as 2 extra seats on flights, with the company claiming the policy will allow customers to treat themselves to something better. Passengers will also be able to bid on upgraded seats with more legroom if they apply up to 26 hours before departure. How's the chat room doing, just out of curiosity? How's it all going there? Has anybody noticed anything?
It's scrolling by like a
Like
meter
some
on
kind of
on
possessed
a
thing.
gas pump. I can't even read it.
Excellent. Hugo, somewhere or other I can't pronounce, Monarch's loyalty and retail product.
Was that Monarch, Matt?
That would be Monarch Airlines.
Monarch.
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely. Just checking.
sure.
Yeah, Monarch.
Monarch.
And retail product development manager said that we are delighted to be the first UK airline to offer these particular products to our customers. We take great delight in our fantastic customer service, and with our new extra comfort seat and bid for extra legroom initiatives, customers can now add more comfort to their journey when they're flying with Monarch.
All right. Do you know what? All the time you're reading that story, Matt, judging by the photograph.
Yeah, do you know, I
they've
thought it was a
used
Boeing 737-800, if I'm honest.
And I could have sworn.
Yeah,
that
the
that
livery
airline
reminded me
interior
of something. Yeah.
was Ryanair.
Yeah, I don't know what ever gave you that idea. I mean, it's just, well, I mean, it's a very unique design that particular airline has chosen, and
Tony S has probably. I think Tony S has had a few
Has
too
exploded?
many beers. He said that's BA.
yeah, is it right? Okay, yeah, that's not.
Nev's now on his way round. Tony.
Nev's gone a funny colour. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, indeed. So yes, excellent work by our ex-chancellor there with his editing prowess, because that clearly was a photograph for a different airline. You know how we love accurate news reporting here at PT
but
UK
the
Towers.
second picture on that story was actually an interior
I didn't
of
get
a
past the
Monarch
first. I'm not going to lie.
Airlines.
I didn't get past the first story. Anyway, everybody's being very quiet about this.
I was going to say, this all seems so British, so civil. I mean, here in the U.S., we just go battle it out in the cockpit, arm-to-arm hand combat, as to who gets the best seat in the airplane.
Quite right,
I mean,
absolutely.
This is too tame.
Yes, no, but you see, we like queuing here in the UK. This is the thing, you see, that's something we're very good at, is queuing. We like to make a nice orderly queue, and if we can do it all politely, we can all swear about each other in our own homes, on our computer, swearing because we've lost our auction. That's fine, But obviously, when we get to the term, we like to be very British, don't we, Nev, about these things? There are rules.
Absolutely. And,
Quite
I think that the it's. I mean, I was just thinking the other day, maybe we should do a show just about media errors.
I think so. Yes, I think we should definitely do an offshoot.
Last the whole day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we should do that.
24-hour show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you find this, Max, in the US that you get a lot of
media misreporting,
clerical errors in the reporting?
Oh my gosh! I don't even want to go there.
Don't want to open that can of worms. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay. Yeah,
this is only a 2-hour show, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, maybe we should move on.
So I'm guessing, Annie, you haven't seen that latest story about the Boeing 380.
No.
Or the Airbus 777. No, it's one of those.
That. No, I have not.
No, okay.
Right. Collaboration project.
I'm completely lost there. Right.
Okay. So moving on to the next story.
So who's going to take the next story?
The
then,
next
just out of
story
curiosity?
is Nev.
Is it?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good news. Now, this story I don't really believe, Nev, if I'm brutally honest. I don't understand how one could fly.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? I don't know if you might put up some
I should
pictures,
put some
possibly,
pictures
Matt,
up.
but
Yes, absolutely.
this is from the Telegraph, and it's all about the world's first convertible private jet.
And that's the bit that's worrying me, if I'm honest.
Also the world's last, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think there's a bit more detail to come here. It says, whilst the most extravagant of private jets might already feature double beds, shower rooms and multimedia centres, the newly unveiled Infinito aircraft is set to debut a feature that will impress even the most jaded oligarch.
Infinito, shouldn't that just be finito?
I think the clue's in the title.
Yeah, absolutely.
When in flight, passengers who look overhead will have an unimpeded view of the sky above. This sensation of being in a convertible private jet is provided not by a glass ceiling, but instead by a screen that will run the length of the cabin. Sophisticated camera equipment will relay a seamless live stream of the vistas enveloping the plane. Should passengers find the sensation discombobulating or uncomfortable, the screen can instead be used to broadcast other images. I just can't imagine the technology that they're going to be using here for this, but they're saying that this is also known as the Airbus ACJ319neo corporate jet. The Infinito has been designed by Airbus in collaboration with Pagani Automobili an ultra-exclusive Italian hypercar manufacturer that ordinarily produces only 45 bespoke cars each year. The latter company's rarefied aesthetic is imprinted throughout the aircraft's interiors, which replicate and reference designs seen in its automobiles. Carpets are made of natural soft leather. Furniture is partially crafted from carbon fiber. And the design team state that the cabin echoes the combination of art and science originally espoused by Leonardo da Vinci. The combination of the state-of-the-art composite materials never used before in an aircraft, such as carbo titanium, with the typical design language of Pagani Automobili, has always represented our signature. This is interesting. Comfortably flying 8 passengers, the aircraft has a range of 6,750 nautical miles, which is 12,500 kilometers, or 15 hours. And travelers will uncover a range of other nifty features on board. One dividing wall, for example, turns from opaque to transparent at the touch of a button. Sculptural elements reference those found in Pagani cars, and a panoply of discrete LEDs allows, says Airbus, for various mood lighting ambiances. And the standard design also features a bedroom with double bed, dining area and shower. So some of this technology I've used quite a bit, actually. Things like the LED lighting and the technology which changes from opaque to transparent and that kind of thing. Yeah. But it's going to be interesting to see how they manage it in the ceiling of the aircraft. And presumably, again, it's a composite material designed throughout. So it'll be interesting to see how this looks.
At the risk of Carlos playing the Nokia tone thingy that I get every time I go off on some kind of technical rant. I mean, I'm assuming that this has got to be LED sort of, because you can get these sort of wraps now, can't you, that they can push signals and stuff through to actually get the images. I mean, it's got to be something lightweight like LED, surely.
I might do a bit of research on this separately, actually, and just see what technology they're going to use in there. But I mean, to talk about making the cabin extremely light, and of course, the only thing I would say about it is that it's just going to be such a different experience, isn't it? So I think it'll be quite interesting to see how it turns out and the kinds of images that they put on there, and how you will feel as a passenger as well. That's the most the thing that's most different to a normal experience, of course.
Well, this is it. I was going to say, one of the worrying images Matt put on the screen when Nev was reading that story was a candlelit dinner.
Yes. I'm not sure I feel
candles on a
comfortable
table lit.
Actual candles, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Did anyone spot that?
Or perhaps they're LED as well.
Perhaps they're LED candles. Yes, they could be LED candles.
You're going to say, Owen?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, when you're that close up to an LED panel as massive as that, do you think it's actually going to look realistic?
Depends on the definition they use, doesn't it? I mean, because you think you can get LED panels that are now 4K. I mean...
Well, obviously the resolution for this is going to have to be a lot more than that, and actually it's the pitch of the LED. So, for example, at Formula One events or horse racing, the pitch of the LED would be sort of 7mm or something like that.
So you're talking about like the screens that you see at these events.
And we've just finished a large conference room or large auditorium for a client at work where the LED pitch is 0.9mm. So obviously the closer you are, the higher resolution it will be with that technology, but it will be seriously expensive, and actually the weight penalty must be quite huge. But they are talking about quite good range out of this aircraft, so it'll be interesting to see how it really works in real life.
Yeah, more research required. I think.
What do you think, Max? One for you?
No, I don't even know where to start on this. I mean, it just sounds crazy.
Fair enough.
But I would imagine since those screens are 6 feet above you, the resolution won't be too big a deal. But I guess, after people have had 1 or 2 drinks, it's not going to matter what's up there.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Sitting on those seats is going to be, that looks
it does look so comfortable, doesn't it? Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy.
So moving on to the next story, and this one is, should we stick to the show notes this time?
Yeah, go on, stick to the show notes, which means it's Owen's go, basically.
Owen's go, this one.
So this one is from theirishtimes.com, a very reputable Irish newspaper.
Of course, absolutely. It's only appropriate, really, that it read in an Irish accent, let's be honest.
It says Clare beach lifeguards take to the skies with drones. A software firm teams up with Clare County Council to trial drone patrols at Spanish Point Beach. An Irish software startup has teamed up with the Clare County Council, and its partnerships will see Drones SAR, developers of a new drone search and rescue app, allow lifeguards to quickly deploy drones as their first response to monitor those in distress. Drone SAR's flight planning software allows drones to scan large areas from above, reduce risk to search and rescue personnel, and shorten search times, and ultimately save lives. The new partnership will see lifeguards in Spanish Point Beach equipped with drones and the Drone SAR software. Drone SAR will provide the drones to the Irish Aviation Authority drone instructors to supervise the drone flights in the early stages. Drones will be flown within the bounds of the IAA drone regulations. So it's a fantastic little article, just kind of with one of those drones that Matt, your friend, has. That's what's in the picture, I think.
It's a
very similar.
DJI.
He's got. I mean, I think he's got a smaller version.
He's got a Mavic. I think he's got a Mavic Pro, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a great bit of kit, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's the amount of users now that are coming out for these UAVs and stuff.
Well, it's nice to have a story that's not negative about drones. Actually, to be honest with you,
it's a good idea. I mean, imagine the amount of area you could monitor in high definition with one of these drones, especially in a busy area like a beach. When we do occasionally get the sun here in the UK, that you'll have this drone to be able to fly over the beach just to keep an eye on sunbathe, swimmers and stuff like that.
Now at the risk of, I was going to throw this over to our esteemed guest here. I mean, how do you feel about drones? I mean, are they? I mean, many could argue that they're a pain in the arse, frankly, a lot of the time. But
it kind of depends where they hit you.
Right. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Well played, sir. Yeah.
It actually, as an owner of multiple drones, I can actually tell you what it feels like to fly a drone into yourself.
So. Yeah. So I have to ask the question: what have you got? What is in your collection?
Oh gosh, I've got a assorted number of small Hubsons. I've got a Phantom DJI.
Lovely.
Phantom 2, I guess, one of the earlier ones, and I've got some of the Parrot AR drones. So yeah, the funny thing is, about 3 years ago, my wife said she wanted to learn to fly radio-controlled airplanes, and I'd never been interested in them before, and so we went off to learn to do that. And so every weekend, we're off flying RC, and then during the week I fly the big thing. So one guy who didn't know me at the RC place said, "So what do you do when you're not flying?" And I said, "Well, eat and sleep."
Yes, fair enough. Fair enough. So out of those particular drones, do you have a favourite?
Honestly, I fly my RC planes more than my drones. So,
right. Well, fair enough. Yeah.
As I say, there's a big thing, obviously, with the DJIs and the Hubsan stuff. I mean, what do you, in your personal view, is the best one out of the two? Because obviously, the DJI is the more well-known and popular and more expensive one, Max. The Hubsan's quite a good product as well.
Yeah, so I've got the lesser expensive Hubsons, in the kind of the $50-$60 range, and I think they are great for training and and learning to fly. And so if you kind of cut your teeth on those, then move up to a DJI. You'll have more skills, and so it's a nice progression, I think.
Nev, have you ever been tempted to get your hands on a drone? I mean, has that ever interested you in any way, shape, or form?
Do you know it should do, shouldn't it? But I have had no interest in it so far at all. I'm just wondering whether this is something which I'm going to get interested in later on. A lot of my business colleagues or industry colleagues are qualified drone pilots, and they use it a lot for production and this kind of thing. So I know quite a lot of drone operators and fully qualified ones as well.
That's kind of really where I was going with this, Nev, because I mean, obviously, given what you do sort of outside of aviation, sort of, and that kind of thing. I mean, it is, as I say, it must be something that you come across on an almost sort of weekly basis. I mean, they're used so much in TV production and news gathering and things like that now. I mean, it's. Have you had a go?
The technology, not just for the drone itself, but the video technology associated with it is fantastic.
The quality is incredible.
And the quality is absolutely of broadcast quality. So it might be something which I might get into later on, but don't tell Mrs. Nev.
No. Your secret is safe with us.
I was going to say it's one to put on Mrs. Nev's Christmas list. for.
Uh-oh.
Well, it'll be on her radar if I ever get one. That's for sure.
Absolutely,
But you can't really hide a drone, can you?
No, indeed, indeed. Now, I mean,
we're not still hiding from her the cost of the audio equipment, are we?
Always. Always, I don't know what you're on about. Yeah, I thought this stuff was free.
That's why Neville's their studio is soundproofed.
Yes, absolutely. So she can't hear what's going on at the moment. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Owen. These must appeal to you, surely.
Yeah, they do, but I've never tried one. I've never got my hands on one. I would like to. I'm pretty sure I'd be pretty awful at it, though.
This coming from a guy who wants to be a pilot. Don't tell me that.
It's different.
It is different,
It's
though,
different.
isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Max is
Very,
nodding
very
here.
different.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Totally different set of skills.
Yeah. I mean, the one we keep talking about. We'll have to get Sam on and get him to bring it in and show us actually. But his one is like it's got like a homing function in it. So like when the battery starts to go flat, it goes home and stuff like that.
Perhaps that's another.
See, I could do that with autopilot functions. Yeah,
Right, okay.
that'd be fine.
I was going to say perhaps.
Program it to play. Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Perhaps that's another
maybe not
job
so much the actual flight.
that Max could have would be a drone CFI.
Oh.
Well, and some of the folks that provide training here in the U.S., online courses and stuff like that, have moved to providing online drone, training courses. So
Wow.
yeah, there's a market for that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
There we go.
Sounds like a plan. Anyway, we should probably stop talking about UAVs now.
Droning on here, droning on.
Yeah, droning on.
So the last story, a all important story, this one saved for our guest this evening because he knows everything there is to do about this. So Max,
That's a bit harsh.
no, he does. He covered this in the. He's one of his. Covered this in quite a lot in his shows. But Max, you know all the ins and outs about this story.
Oh, ATC privatization proposal here
yes,
in the
of course.
United States. Yeah. And, as background, I spent about 40 hours researching a show which we put out last week on Aviation News Talk, which ran 2 hours. It had Rob Mark from Flying Magazine join me.
Yeah,
We ran probably more than a dozen audio clips from both the president, from congressmen who were testifying, from pilots from other countries who have experienced privatization and the fees that they have to pay.
Wow.
So we really did a deep dive on this, and I learned a lot more about it than I knew. And it's just the more you learn about it, the more it looks like we're in for a bad deal, certainly for general aviation if it passes in the United States. But this story comes from AOPA, and they say GA unites against ATC privatization. 46 industry groups, I didn't know we had that many, issues a joint statement following AOPA call to action. And it says that they've all voiced their opposition to the 21st Century Air Act, which I think is misspelled. I think it should be spelled ERROR. I think it would be a big error if they passed the 21st Century Air Act. Anyway, this basically would cleave the air traffic control function from the FAA. And this article says hand it to the airlines. Well, it would be handed to a non-profit corporation run by 13 people, some of whom would be picked by the airlines. And so one of the key points of debate is, well, is it really run by the airlines, or is it run by a more balanced board? But they go on to say in the article that GA contributes more than $219 billion to our total economic output, and I'd love to get about 1%, by the way, so that would be a fair percentage for me to take. Supports 1.1 million jobs, includes a network of thousands of airports and heliports, and they say privatization would jeopardize that, and I totally agree. In the call to action, they've asked members to voice their concerns to the representatives in Congress and oppose the House bill. Now, they mentioned the House bill because the Senate has a separate bill which does not include privatization. So the House and the Senate currently are split as to whether ATC should be split out. So what Mark Baker, the AOPA president, says handing over air traffic control to the airlines would increase costs for all travelers. By the way, that comes directly from a Delta study. Would disproportionately hurt rural America and general aviation and create a too-big-to-fail institution, leaving taxpayers on the hook for bailouts. So basically everybody is lined up against it. And just to kind of let you know some of the things that have gone on, this has been proposed for more than 20 years here in the United States. Every 6 to 8 years, it kind of rears its ugly head, kind of like the monster in that movie that just can't be killed. Just when you think it's dead, it comes up again. But among all the airlines, Delta has split apart from everyone else. Delta put out a study last year in which they said in a period from 1996 to 2012, the ATC cost in Canada went up 60%. In the UK, they went up 30%. And in the US at that time, they went up to 6%. And they said that they looked at Canada, and they said that the higher fees there resulted in an increase in airline ticket prices, which sent Canadians across the border to find cheaper airline tickets by departing from U.S. airports like Buffalo and places like that are close to the border.
Some of the Max, actually, just sorry to interrupt you. You said it's been going on for 20 years or so, and every 6 to 8 years it rears its ugly head again. Do you think it's gaining more momentum now with this current publicity that we're hearing about?
Yeah, sadly it has. I think it's gotten to the point where it wouldn't be too difficult to push it over. In the past, we've had pretty solid support in Congress against it. Now it looks like the House may actually be in favor of it. So yeah, this is as close to it passing as we have ever seen, which is pretty scary. Sure. And it's it's interesting. It's not really a partisan issue in the past. Different Democratic administrations, Republican administrations have brought it up. It's a little bit partisan, this time, just because everything is. So it tends to be more supported by Republicans than by Democrats. But some of the key differences here versus what they've done in other parts of the world. Usually privatization, government sells the assets to the highest bidder, who then runs a company. They're not talking about that. They want to take $53 billion of assets that taxpayers paid for and just give it away to this group, as opposed to to the highest bidder. And then on top of giving them all that, they think they'll probably need $6 or $7 billion of seed money to get started. And then you look at salaries. The chief executive in NAV Canada, their privatized ATC, makes $2.3 million a year, which is probably about 20 times more than the typical managers in the FAA. Well, maybe 10 times. I'm not sure the exact numbers there, but anyway.
Do you know, that always makes me really, stuff like that always makes me really nervous, that when you're talking about something like this is basically like a national service. I really do feel uncomfortable when something like a national service is making a profit. Do you know what I mean? I feel that money should be being reinvested back into the network to keep things going. I mean, I don't know if I'm sort of speaking out of turn here, really, but it's the same. Like here, they privatised the railway companies, and yet we've got probably one of the worst railway systems here in the entire UK and in the entire world, probably. And yet these companies that are failing, people are making huge profits at our expense. And I'm really concerned that the same thing is likely to happen with ATC, because, as you say, it's gaining more and more momentum and is getting more and more probably inevitable, one might be so brave as to say. And as you say, and these companies are making a profit, that really frightens me.
Yeah. In fact, my daughter's boyfriend, who's from the UK, was just commenting about the trains a few days ago.
Right,
exactly.
Okay. No, they are
exactly the same.
Yeah, they are a hot topic here in the UK. It's because it's either the weather or trains. That's all we ever talk about here.
No, I think everyone in the chat room pretty much agrees that Lane Street has said it's a bad idea.
Yeah, I think that's a general thing. And actually, we'll talk more about the various projects that Max is involved in. But if you do want to have a listen to that podcast, I cannot recommend it highly enough. We've all had a listen to it this week. Even Captain Jeff has been retweeting it as well. Take yourself to aviationnewstalk.com and you'll actually find that it's right there. So that's aviationnewstalk.com. But obviously we'll put all these details in the show notes. But seriously, it is a fascinating listen. You must listen to it. Maybe not right now. Wait till you finish listening to this and then do it. But
So to sum that whole story up in one quick sentence, then, Max. The privatisation. Go on.
Good luck.
Yeah. No, you were going to do it for me. Go right ahead.
Yeah. No, fire away.
Yeah. It shouldn't happen. Basically, I think that's where we're going with this. Yeah.
I think the view is that the airlines would love to do it because it would give them more control and give them the opportunity to shift some of their cost off to general aviation. And I think there's another group of folks who just, from an ideological point of view, just believe privatization is always good and should be done.
Yeah.
So I really think it's about money, control, and ideology. And everybody in GA says, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be bad." And if you look at other countries around the world, most people feel that privatization has hurt GA in those countries.
Yeah.
Right, so that's where we bring the commercial news segment of the show to a close. We have got a very special segment sent in from someone who's not very far, well, I say not very far away from us now. He's on the Skype call with us tonight. So we've got another of our fantastic segments sent to us by Nev, and it's all about the passenger experience.
Yeah, perhaps you'd like to introduce it before we hit the go, sir.
Introduce your own segment, Nev.
Oh, how about that? That's good, isn't it? Yeah, well, very pleased to... I don't often do interviews actually in my own studio here, because I normally go out on location and that kind of thing. But as Liz Piper was in the UK and she was staying with us for a couple of days, I thought I couldn't resist the temptation to have a chat with her about the whole, her passenger experience on her flight from Toronto to London. And, of course, a lot of people I'm interviewing are very negative about all sorts of things. I've got lots of negative ones lined up as well. But I thought it would be a nice change to have a positive one. And actually, I think you'll quite like this, because Liz, she doesn't fly long haul very often, but I think she was quite impressed with her experience.
So here comes part 4 right now.
Hello everyone, it's Nev here again, talking about the passenger experience. But here I am in the studio this week, and I'm very pleased to say I've been joined by Liz Piper, who has made it all the way from Toronto to the United Kingdom, completely unscathed. Hello Liz, nice to see you.
Hi Nev, this is such a treat for me to actually be face to face and doing an interview in the Nev Tech studio.
Yeah, how about that? So, no, brilliant. Thanks ever so much for coming. And so, first of all, before we get into the passenger experience, tell us about your trip and what you've done so far.
Well, that's great. I mean, the underlying purpose for the trip was I had a fantastic invitation from Captain Nick Anderson's wife, Jilly. She and I share a love of tennis, and she got tickets to go to Wimbledon and asked me to come over and go with her and stay with them. And then you were nice enough to ask me to come and stay with you for a couple of nights. So that's really the purpose of the trip. So I didn't have many options when it came to booking the flights, actually, because I wanted to use some points. And really the only option was Air Canada, which I thought, how's this going to go? Because Air Canada has a bit of a reputation. But I booked on Air Canada economy, not even premium economy, and flew on the daytime flight, which was really nice for me because it left Toronto Pearson around just after 9 in the morning, got into Heathrow around 9 at night. So you your body clock kind of stays in sync, if you will.
Nice, yeah. So tell us about the whole experience from the check-in at Toronto Pearson all the way through security. What's it like there?
Well, interestingly, I happen to be one of those people who gets there very, very early for a flight. So for a 9:10 flight, I was there around 6 in the morning. So it meant that the airport, even though it was busy, it wasn't super duper busy. And differently than a lot of flights that I take, I'm often going to the States, and you actually clear customs in Toronto when you go to the States. So I didn't have to do that. I had done the online check-in ahead of time, so I had my boarding pass. Just had to print out a bag tag. I got pulled over, and they asked to weigh my bag, and I thought, oh dear, this is going to be bad. But all they did was put a heavy sticker on it. So very, very easy. Then they just put it on, and your bag's gone. So just decided to go right away through security and get airside and just to, get there. And it's great. I mean, one of the things that I think is great in Terminal 1, which is what Air Canada uses at Pearson, is they understand everybody wants their electronics. And they have lots of lovely areas. And you don't even have to buy food to sit in them. You can order food and have it delivered there. But with plugs, USB plugs, and all that kind of stuff. So I did quite a bit of plane spotting. I had my live ATC on, and I was listening to that, true av geek that I am, and was watching the planes and just sitting there kind of, talking to my friends and sending out the odd tweet and stuff. So it was great. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, that sounds brilliant. And what about the flight itself? What was that economy class like coming across? Was it reasonably comfortable?
It was. It was a Dreamliner, and I had you do this on Air Canada. I don't know if that's true on other airlines. You pay a little bit extra to get either a bulkhead seat or an exit row seat. So I had a bulkhead seat, which was fine. Lots of leg room. The plane departed the gate on time, but all of a sudden stopped, and they went back to the gate, and they realized someone hadn't boarded, and their bag was on board, and they had to get the bag off. And I thought, ooh, what's this going to take? It was about 10, 15 minutes. So I say for a 9:10 flight, we didn't actually get off the ground till maybe 10 to 10. Dreamliner I thought was great. It was a relatively new plane. It was about a 2-year-old plane. Very quiet, with all due respect to Captain Nick. It was very quiet, very enjoyable. I would say a very senior, in both senses of the word, flight crew. Great. Food was decent. It wasn't great, but it wasn't inedible. IFE, because I was in the bulkhead seat, you had one of the kind of screens that pulls up from the side and sort of sits in front. Watched a movie, which was great, and no, it was good. I didn't really try to doze, just because, as I said, I was flying during the daytime for me, so it was good. Landed about 10 minutes late into Heathrow. I think we did one spin around one of the stacks.
Yeah, that wasn't bad at all. And what about getting into Heathrow itself? The immigration, the luggage collection. How did that go?
Great. I believe Air Canada uses Terminal 2 at Heathrow. Very good. Got off the plane, went through immigration control. Lots of people in the line, but they had lots of staff members on site, so that was pretty fast. The woman asked me what the purpose of my trip was, and I said, well, basically to go to Wimbledon, and she was really into that. She said, oh, I'm a tennis fan myself, so that was kind of nice. Got through, got the bag. The bag came, I would say, relatively quickly. I mean, obviously they give priority to their business class and probably premium economy, but that was fine. And then I had a few things that I probably should have declared. And of course, you know, at Heathrow, you have things to declare and nothing to declare. And I thought, am I going to do this the legit way, or am I going through the green lane? And I thought, I'm just going through the green lane. So and there was no issue. I just went through. And then I had bought online a bus ticket, because I was staying at Heathrow that night. I was going to be picked up the next morning. I didn't want them to have to come up in the evening. So found the bus, not too badly, and got over to a fantastic hotel. I'm going to do a little plug here, if I may. The Renaissance Heathrow Hotel.
It's a nice one.
It was lovely, Nev. Had a runway view room, which I didn't really appreciate till the next morning. Ordered some great room service, which is often not that great. Had a great sleep, listened to a little APG, and it was great. And then did a lot of plane spotting in the morning, so it was good.
Oh, great stuff. Now, tell us about your return journey, because I understand you've got a special treat going back.
I do. Well, interestingly, and I should know more of the facts around this, but I believe several airlines around the world have this in place, and I think Air Canada is the first one in North America to implement it. And it's what you would call an auction system for upgrades. So when I booked my ticket back in February, late February, early March, I had, as I said, booked an economy ticket. And I would say about 3 to 4 weeks before I actually flew, I get an email from Air Canada and said, would you like to bid on an upgrade? And they said the outgoing flight to Heathrow had no upgrades available. Fine, no problem. Would you like to bid on an upgrade on your return flight? So I thought, you know what, I'm not even sure I'm going to do the bid, but I'm going to go through the process and just see what the process looks like. So I clicked all the buttons, and I arrived at a screen, and they said, would you like to bid on a premium economy seat or a business class seat? And as I think I said to you, go big or go home, I thought, I'm going to bid on business class. So what they do is they take your Visa card, credit card, whatever, and you put in a number that you would be willing to pay for that. And they have a little...
In dollars?
In dollars, in Canadian dollars,
okay,
correct.
Yeah.
You maybe could change the currency. I don't know. That's interesting. I didn't really pick up on that nuance, but because it's a Canadian airline, that's what's the default anyway. And they have a little bit of a meter on the side. So when I put my first number in, the meter comes back and says low bid or very low bid. And I thought, okay, there's a chance of me getting that is probably nil. So I just thought long and hard and thought, what's the highest number I'm comfortable with paying? Plunked it in. And it came back sort of middle of the meter, I would say. I think it said that's a good bid or something like that. And the deal was it just sits there until 2 days before you're going to fly. So today is 2 days before I'm going to fly. And I got an email pop into my inbox that said, congratulations, your upgrade bid has been accepted. So I'm going to be flying business class home, which is kind of a treat for me.
I'm not asking you to reveal the exact amount, obviously,
No.
but do you think that it is substantially less than you would have been paying had you bought a proper full fare business class ticket?
Yes, definitely so. And I mean, obviously, because I was only doing one leg of a return trip. But yes, even if I double that and think about would that have been a business class return, it's substantially lower, I think.
I've not heard of that before. And do you think that would be a popular thing for other airlines to offer?
Well, I think so. I mean, it puts it in your mind. I mean, I don't think I have ever even asked for an upgrade before. It's just something that didn't occur to me. And had I not gotten this, I had an exit row seat. I was very happy with what I had coming over. So I would have said, okay, c'est la vie. I'm not spending the money. That's fine. But I think it's quite interesting. And an interesting aspect I hadn't thought of, I was discussing it with Nick Anderson, and he was saying, of course, in their airline, they sell, quote unquote, their upgrades right at the check-in. And this eliminates that for their staff. It's all handled ahead of time. It's automated, if you will. They know now 2 days before flying how many of these upgrades they're going to actually sell. So I can sort of see an advantage to it. Anyway, for me, it's just a treat that I decided to indulge in.
Yeah, and don't blame you. Well, I very much look forward to hearing how good the experience was when you get it over back to Pearson. But,
well, the treat for me that you've had the good fortune to experience is I also get some lounge access at Heathrow. And Air Canada does have their own lounge at Heathrow called the Maple Leaf Lounge. So I'll see what that's all about too. Yeah,
superb. Well, thanks ever so much indeed for talking to us today, Liz, and safe trip back home on Thursday.
Thanks so much, Nev. It was great to talk to you.
Find this and other great shows at the Aviation Media Network.
thevoicesinyourhead.com.
The Plain Talking UK podcast is a voluntary project that aims to keep you informed with the latest aviation-related stories from newswires across the globe.
Producing our content does cost money though. If you enjoy our show, why not help us keep on the air by making a donation towards the server and website hosting fees through PayPal. Any contributions would be greatly appreciated.
Are you an Amazon user? If so, why not do your shopping through the link on our website? There's no cost to yourself, and Amazon pay us a small referral fee on qualifying purchases.
To find out more about the show and to meet the team, take yourself to our website www.plaintalkinguk.com,
or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/plaintalkinguk, on Twitter via @plaintalkinguk, or get in touch via email on podcast@plaintalkinguk.com. Thanks for listening.
Flybe 5823, Trent Dane for 23R Manchester, Wizz Air 6X, climb flight level 210, direct to Bretlands Park. United 123, maintain 280 knots. London 2DME, turn right onto Bravo, link, 21 join Alpha, hold at Mora, Speedbird 472, LOC/DME, approach runway 27 left, follow the green stand 544.
That's enough air traffic control for today, Nat. Bedtime.
Aviation media has long been the domain of the newspapers and magazines.
Well, not anymore. I'm Steve Vischer.
And I'm Grant McCarran, and we're bringing aviation right into your radio.
Yes, we're making aviation cool and interesting for everyone.
Hang on, aviation's always been cool. Check this out.
How cool is this?
Grant, turn that down. Here at Plane Crazy Down Under, we've got pilots, engineers, air traffic controllers, industry leaders, even politicians dropping by to talk to us about the amazing world of aviation right here in Australia and occasionally in New Zealand as well.
Wow, that's cooler than I thought, mate.
Find us at planecrazydownunder.com, on iTunes, or lurking about on other people's podcasts just like this one.
We've got crazy accents and lots of great aviation content.
And we promise not to talk about the cricket.
No, never. Not the cricket. Quack, 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 quack. What is cricket anyhow?
Something we win a lot. Oh, there.
Oh!
And, of course, the lovely Grant McCarran was a part of our big Australian special last week, which was great to have him on. So, yeah, come on, PCDU. It's about time we had some more episodes, actually.
If you're listening, Grant.
Yeah, absolutely,
I
Grant.
expect you are, Grant,
Yes,
listening
indeed.
whilst you're on your way to work or
something
ballooning
like that, yes,
somewhere.
or whatever it is he's doing, yes.
Yes. So a massive thank you to Nev, as always, for that
great
awesome segment. Very, very nice
I just pressed the record button. It was Liz that did all the talking, and that was quite an interesting story as well. Actually.
I'll tell you what, it was she was a real star, wasn't she? When we were in Pittsburgh, but she was running you, me, and goodness knows who else out all over the shop.
Yeah.
It was brilliant.
Yeah, she was good,
really good. Such
she's
a
actually
lovely lady.
She's just left the chat room, you know.
Has she?
Yeah, to go and take the dog for a walk.
Oh, mind you, see, I don't like listening to my own voice, so maybe that's the reason why she's. I'm clearly in the wrong job, aren't I?
I know. But no, thanks a lot for that, Nev. Great audio, great content as always, and looking forward to.
Pleasure.
The next
There'll be
installment.
more where that came from.
Can't wait.
Brilliant.
Literally can't wait.
So moving on then with the show, we've got no segment from Pip this week. He was
he's in sabbatical.
Corsica. He's in Corsica.
Oh, is he? Oh, that's a reasonable excuse. Yeah,
so
if he's working, that's all right.
He's
That's
working.
fine.
He's flying. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll let him off again this week. But next week, Pip, if you're listening, honestly,
stop it.
You know,
he's a busy man. Don't be horrible.
So we're going to move on then with a couple of military stories which I found this week, which are quite interesting. So if everyone's ready, we're going to hit some military news.
Okay, let's go.
So our first news story on the military segment this week, this one is on the Royal Air Force's website, and the headline, Identity of the F-35 Lightning Training Squadron announced. This story, this one, what's the day? Is it the 8th today? Is it the 8th?
It is, yeah.
It's the 7th today.
Yeah.
This is a couple of days ago this one came online, and the squadron which will train the future Air Force and Royal Navy F-35B Lightning pilots at RAF Marham has been announced as 207 Squadron. The announcement was made during a visit to RAF Marham by the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Sir Stephen Hillier, and the First Sea Lord Admiral Sir Philip Jones to view the progress being made to prepare for the arrival of the 5th generation fighter at the Norfolk base next summer. Air Chief Marshal Stephen Hillier said, I am very pleased to announce that the operational conversion unit for the UK's F-35B Lightning fleet will be 207 Squadron. The squadron has a proud and distinguished history, not only as an RAF squadron, but as one of the earliest squadrons of the Royal Naval Air Service with the Royal Flying Corps that came together to form the Royal Air Force on the 1st of April 1918. Preparations for the arrival of the first UK Lightnings next year are progressing well. The investment of £250 million in infrastructure here at RAF Marham will ensure the station has the facilities to match this world-class aircraft when it arrives next year. As the home of the UK Lightning Force, the station will be at the heart of the UK air power for decades to come. Admiral Sir Philip Jones, First Sea Lord and Chief of Naval Air Staff, said that 207 Squadron will play an important part of the future of both the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy, and rightly reflects our shared aviation heritage. I was in the United States earlier this month to meet some of the pilots and maintainers who are getting to grips with the F-35B. They're working brilliantly together, and today I've seen some of the sense and purpose of these readying RAF Marham for their arrival. HMS Queen Elizabeth is the first aircraft carrier in the world designed from the outset to operate a 5th generation combat aircraft. Crucially, a second ship, HMS Prince of Wales, is on its way, which will give the UK a continuous carrier strike capability. I have every expectation in that time that this combination of carriers and jets will represent a powerful and important strategic convenient deterrent. The new infrastructure currently being built at RAF Marham includes vertical landing pads, a renewal of runways and taxiways, and new technical and training facilities, offices and hangars. The first Lightnings will arrive at RAF Marham next summer next year, when the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy pilots currently training in the US will return as 617 Squadron, the Dambusters. The Lightning OCU will stand up as 207 Squadron on the 1st of July 2019.
I must say I'm quite pleased because they've gone through a phase where they've been closing lots of RAF bases, especially in this region. So actually, a part of me is quite pleased that this one is expanding and being kitted out to take new craft. I mean, it's
and it's only in our next county.
Well, indeed.
Not far from us. It's only a short drive from us, actually.
If you want to cross into the Norfolk border, it is barely a mile. To be fair,
exactly.
It's great. It's good news. It is good news for us here. So, who's going to take the next?
Who wants the next story? Anyone?
Any volunteers?
I'll take it if you like.
Go on.
Okay, thank you.
I've got it in front of me.
Well done, you. Yes, absolutely.
This is interesting. This is from thedrive.com, and this is the US Air Force tested an advanced modular sensor pod on a vintage airliner, and the US Air Force is testing a state-of-the-art sensor package called Agile Pod, which it hopes will ultimately offer all new capabilities for surveillance aircraft and drones, such as the MQ-9 Reaper. But the service picked a decidedly less advanced platform for the initial flight test, the venerable Douglas DC-3. And in June 2017, the Blue Guardian program, part of the Air Force Research Laboratory's Sensors Directorate, revealed that it had sent a prototype Agile Pod, which is a registered US government trademark, by the way, aloft on the contractor's DC-3 ahead of plans to install it on an MQ-9. As such, they had dubbed the experiments Project Harvest Reaper. And Agile Pod is a game changer, says Air Force Captain Russell Shirey. And the current sensor capabilities on the aircraft are built for specific mission tasks, such as close air support or targeting using proprietary software and hardware. Open system architecture standards combined with a single Agile Pod having plug-and-play capabilities and configurations enables one pod to perform hundreds of different mission sets. And it's in its final form, the Agile Pod could conceivably carry various types of still and full motion video cameras able to collect imagery during the day and at night, as well as signal detecting or communications listening equipment and other electronic intelligence hardware all at once. And many of these systems have an inherent dual use when paired with jammers or other electronic warfare tools too, opening up the possibility for even more functionality. The pod itself attaches to a pylon or other hardpoint using standardized legs. It actually looks like a bit of a Nimrod aircraft.
It does,
actually,
doesn't it?
in some ways. But it's quite interesting because the Air Force does already have MQ-9s configured for this role, but it requires carrying two large sensor pods that form the core of the system. And this essentially precludes the aircraft from doing anything else. But official photographs show the experimental Agile Pod carrying two independent electro-optical turrets during at least one of the test flights. So this is quite a new bit of hardware by the looks of things, and looks like it's going to be a very flexible piece of hardware, especially for, as it says, full motion video cameras and still cameras as well. So
it's amazing
see how that goes.
How they've used that DC-3 as a test bed for this particular bit of kit. You got something that was built, in the early 50s, sort of late 40s, early 50s. Testing this brand new state-of-the-art piece of equipment. It just goes to show, the tested time. These aircraft are just so bloody well
I just love the idea of the sort of it's the time gap, isn't it? I just it's something quite sort of, the geek in me really quite likes the old versus the new, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
What do you think of this, Max?
Yeah, no, I just did a story about two DC-3s that are no longer in service, flying cargo from Long Beach to Catalina. One of them entered service in 1944. So it's just these airplanes are just remarkably tough, and it's kind of cool to still see them living with new missions.
Absolutely, they're great things.
So next story, moving on. Who's going to take the last one? Any offers? No?
Yeah, I don't mind. I'll take it.
Go on, Eoin.
Okay, thank goodness for that.
No problem. So this is from shepherdmedia.com, and it says, RAAF upgraded Hawks begin training. So the Royal Australian Air Force has commenced flights on the upgraded Hawk Advanced Jet Trainer aircraft, with the initial operating capability for lead-in fighter capability assurance program now achieved. BAE Systems is upgrading 33 Hawk aircraft for the RAAF under the program that began in 2014. Upgraded to the latest digital standard, each upgraded Hawk provides new training capabilities, including simulated radar, electronic warfare, digital mapping, ground proximity warning systems, and traffic collision avoidance. 2 legacy synthetic training devices are also being replaced with 3 full mission simulators provided by the CAE. The upgrade of the Australian Hawk fleet is designed to provide an enhanced training capability to prepare pilots for the cockpits of the FA-18A/B Classic Hornets, the FA-18F Super Hornet, and the EA-18G Growler aircraft. And when introduced into service in 2018, the F-35A Lightning. The fleet upgrade will be completed by early 2019. 12 of the 33-strong fleet have already been completed. So very cool. New bits of kit being
absolutely.
And another, like the last story, an aircraft that has stood the test of time. Bearing in mind the Hawk first flew in 1974. That's 1974. And this is also, don't forget, the aircraft, the Red Arrows used the T1 variant of this aircraft for the display team. But it just goes to show there's been a lot of variants, obviously, of the Hawk since its first came online back in 1974. But still another fantastic bit of kit that is still very much got plenty of legs left in it. A bit like the B-52, really, like we saw over in Pittsburgh. That's
beautiful
been given an extended life for another 50-something years.
And I mean, they're putting in, they're adding in those full mission simulators. I don't think they're full motion, but I think full mission simulators, and each of those is worth, I think, around about $11 million. So they're very invested in the Hawk for the next while, anyway.
Definitely.
Agreed.
So that's where we bring the military news segment of the show to a close. And, we're going to move on to our chat with our special guest on the show tonight. So welcome again, Max, onto the show. I hope you've enjoyed yourself so far.
That's a bit putting me on the spot, isn't it, really?
He's gone silent.
He can't say no, can he?
He's gone silent, no.
Oh, no.
Are you still there, Max?
Oh dear, I did put it on mute.
That'll be all right then. That's fine.
The good old mute button.
Yeah. So you missed me saying I'm thrilled to be here.
Good.
Or something like that.
The deathly silence was a little bit nerve-wracking. I'm not going to lie. We just sort of thinking,
that's something that goes with all podcasts. It is not an aviation podcast if you switch to a host,
and
their mic's on mute.
Absolutely, perfectly normal.
Because it happens on the geeks all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But not Max, though. Max never does it. No. So, well, like I said, thanks for coming on to this show tonight, Max. It's been good to have you on. But we're going to have a little chat with you and find out a bit more, really in depth, as to to how your aviation career started. When did things kick off for you, Max, and how did you get to where you are now?
Like most things, I started as a young child.
Fair enough.
Both life and flying. No, I think probably my first flight was, I'm guessing I was probably 9 or 10, and they had $5 rides that they would give at the local airport. So my sister and I got my mom to take us go fly 15 minutes around, see the town, and I was just hooked from there on. So started taking flight lessons when I was 15, and my mom had to drive me to the airport because I didn't have a driver license to get there to myself. So she'd drive me to the airport, and I'd fly the airplane. And then finished my license about 4 years later when I was in college, 19, and spent a good 25 years working for Hewlett Packard, where I would maybe fly on average 30 hours a year on the side. And then the last few years at HP, I got my flight instructor rating and started teaching on weekends. I would sometimes fly 8 hours on Saturday, 8 hours on Sunday, and go back to work at HP on Monday.
Wow.
So, yeah, exactly. I kind of threw myself into it. Had great fun. It's really kind of odd. I never actually planned to get a flight instructor certificate, but one summer, a friend of mine, Tim Johnson, said, "Gee, Max, I'm getting my CFI. You should too." And I just said, "Yeah, you're right."
Sounds like a great idea. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm having great fun. I used to think that I enjoy just flying for the sake of itself, but I really found I enjoy flying with other people, and I really enjoy helping them achieve their goals. And as a flight instructor, that's the perfect job.
So how often, Max, do you do the flight instructions? Is it on a daily basis? You do the instruction? Do you have students every day?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, it waxes and wanes depending on scheduling. Depends on who's starting and who's finished and all that kind of stuff. But last year I flew 750 hours, of which 500 were in the last 6 months of the year. So it was pretty hectic schedule. And of those hours, more than half of them were in the Cirrus. So
the types of aircraft you've flown, Max, obviously is probably a list as long as your arm of aircraft you've flown, but sort of a kind of breakdown really of the GA aircraft that you've had the chance. Obviously you've flown the Cirrus. Anything else slightly bigger or?
Yeah, so I was applying to be an examiner a couple years ago, and they wanted to know how many types have you flown. I had no idea, so I went in my logbook and I found 85 different aircraft types that I'd flown. So just about anything that's a single-engine certificated aircraft I've probably flown. Very little in the experimental world. I just don't spend much time in experimental aircraft. In fact, my very first flight in a Vans was 2 days ago. It was an RV-7A that somebody was flying me back from having delivered a Cirrus to another airport, so that was fun. And on the high end, I'm type rated in 2 jets, the Phenom 100 and the Eclipse jet, which oddly, when you're in those, it's kind of like flying a Cirrus. The speeds aren't much different, and it has a similar feel to it.
Out of those, do you have a preference as to the one you like the most, or do they all just feel amazing?
I believe it or not, I really like the Cirrus better than flying the jets. I mean, when you're flying the jets, you climb up to 41,000 feet, and then you land and climb back up to 41,000 feet, and the whole time you're talking to air traffic control and you're looking at the tops of the clouds, and it's like, I'd much rather be down closer to the earth, kind of watching the world go by. It's just so beautiful here. So for me, the Cirrus is perfect because it's got the technology. I'm a technology guy. We've got wonderful scenery to see here in California. So yeah, I pick a Cirrus any day.
So do you do a lot of delivery of aircraft then, Max? Obviously you do the flight instruction stuff, but do you get people then call you and say, hey Max, I've got this SR-22 here in one side of the US, can you bring it over to the other side? Is that another kind of service you provide as well?
I do. So, for example, I wouldn't say that's in the main business. It's kind of a sideline, and it's not something where I would want to do it every week because I kind of like being at home. But yeah, I probably do it every month or two. I'm probably on the road for a quick trip somewhere. A good example, I'm scheduled on Friday to go to El Paso, Texas to pick up a 206 and bring it back with a new owner. And we originally were scheduled to go 3 weeks ago, but the temperatures in El Paso, I think, were 113, and where we were headed in Las Vegas, they were 116 because they had to make a stop along the way. And I just said, I don't think this is a good time to fly.
So we've got a question then from... Oh, you going to take this one, Matt?
No, carry on.
No, okay. So Max, have you flown any historical aircraft? And this is from Micah. And what have you enjoyed, and have you flown any that were unusual in handling or performance?
Yeah, I've flown the Ford Trimotor, 1929 Ford Trimotor that EAA has, and that was a kick. I was up in the right seat, and we had a full load of passengers. The pilot took off, and I did the flying while we were in the air. He did the landing, pretty wise move, and we got all those folks in the back. But the funny thing is, we were partway through, and he said, it works better if you look outside. And I realized, I was glued to the instruments, which is, I teach a lot in modern glass cockpit aircraft, so I'm just so used to looking at the instruments. I was kind of forgetting, you're supposed to look outside, which is what I'm always telling my students. So it was kind of ironic, but great fun to look out the right window and see that right engine kind of right there, just slightly behind you. It's a beautiful aircraft.
And on a side note to that, have you flown any hysterical aircraft? Defined as you choose.
That's a really good question. These days, I learned to fly in a Cessna 150, and I would say these days it would be hysterical to see me try and climb into one.
Nothing wrong with a 150.
That's what Carlos is learning to fly in. So.
Yeah, no, I tell folks there's only one way to get into a 150, and that's to strap it onto your back.
Right.
Actually, I was going to say there's only one way, and that's to fall into one.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very similar.
So, Lane Street in the chat room, Max, has asked, any float plane experience, or have you ever flown in a Beaver Super Cub?
A Beaver Super Cub. I'm not sure if that's two airplanes.
I think it's two airplanes. Yeah, in a Beaver,
Super
Cub. Yeah.
Sorry, my phone.
Yeah, so I have flown in float planes. I have an ATP rating in both single engine and multi-engine seaplanes, which means I've flown instrument approaches and then circle to land on the water, which is kind of pretty wild. I flew a Cub on floats in Ireland. A friend of mine, William, over there has one, and I wrote about that back, I want to say it was 2010, 2011, when I was a columnist at the EAA's Sport Aviation magazine. So that was really a kick, flying around the little lakes in Ireland. And I do own a seaplane, a lake amphibian. So it's not a float plane, but it's actually an amphibian because it sits down on the water. And I really like that compared to the float planes where you're sitting up, maybe 6 feet above the water. Here you're right down on the water, which is pretty cool.
So another question here. We always hate. I was a bit nervous asking pilots this because obviously you never want things to go wrong, especially when it involves flying. Yeah. But Richard King has asked, Max, have you had any scary moments during your time flying, and anything that of particular note, shall we say?
I would say that in my flying career, there have been 2 times where the stall horn went off when I was not expecting it. And so that kind of woke me up really fast in both cases. One case I was in the right seat with a Cirrus owner, and we were going into one of the airports in Las Vegas, and we were on final, and I relaxed, and I thought, he's an owner, he's got this nailed, and then the stall horn went off, and wow, that woke me up in a big hurry, since we were not anywhere close to the runway where it would be acceptable to hear the stall horn. And same thing happened one time in a 172 where we were on downwind, and then the tower told us to make a 360 for spacing, and the stall horn went off, and whoops, that got my attention again too. So I would say those are the only 2 times where I really got caught, off guard. But thank goodness for the stall horn. It's there to kind of refocus your attention on what it should be on.
Make you concentrate. Absolutely. I asked this question with slight nerves because this is from Captain Al, so apologies in advance for anyone. And he's asking, Max, how do you handle students that just won't make it?
Oh dear.
Yeah, you can always rely on Captain Al for a controversial question.
I'm just wondering if this is really from him or from one of my students that I think won't make it.
Well, yeah, there is that. Yeah, that was very diplomatic. Well done.
It's a challenge, and I did have one of those folks recently, and he actually recently decided not to continue because I think he kind of reached the same conclusion, maybe for different reasons. I think that's one of the biggest challenges we have as flight instructors, because nobody knows 100% for sure that somebody's not going to make it, but you can kind of have a gut feeling or see evidence of it, and then you have to figure out how do you present that. So I think that's a real challenge. Fortunately, I don't run into that very often. Most recent case, person figured it out themselves.
Thank goodness for that.
Okay, so next question I've got is from Tony S, and it's a more technical one. Can you explain the circumstances or protocols where you use caps instead of a dead stick landing in the Cirrus?
Okay, so explain to me what that means. Sorry, because I'm not. I'm sure. The one that knows nothing here.
So on the keyboard, the caps key is the one that shifts between. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, right. Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
No. Caps is the
well played,
the
sir. Well played.
Yeah. Into the Cirrus aircraft, and boy, I can't remember the acronym off the top of my head, but everybody calls the parachute caps. And my thinking has evolved on this. Pilots who learn in other than Cirrus aircraft are taught that, hey, when the engine dies, don't worry. There's always a lovely field nearby. You're just going to circle down and glide and make a perfect landing and walk away without a scratch. The truth is that might not always work out quite that way. So in the Cirrus, we have another option, which is to pull the parachute. And the general thinking these days is, unless there happens to be an airport right below you when the engine fails, you probably should pull the caps parachute. And the logic behind that is really pretty simple. I mean, if the minimum altitude that you're going to pull a parachute is about 500 feet, from 500 feet, it's pretty hard to evaluate whether that field is really nice and smooth and clean, or whether it's full of, woodchuck holes, or they just cut the Christmas trees out of there yesterday, or, things like that. By the time you get low enough to discover that, it's too late to use the parachute. So if we were touching down in one of these aircraft in the field, you're going to be doing about 75 knots.
Wow.
Whereas if you pull the parachute, you're coming down about 15 knots. Now, force is proportional to the square of the speed. So if you hit something and it's 5 times faster at 75 knots, it's going to be 25 times the force. So imagine somebody punching you in the arm, and then imagine them punching you 25 times harder. So the forces on the human body really favor pulling the parachute. So I've totally changed my thinking to, unless there's an airport, I'm going to pull the parachute. Because the parachute has an incredible, reliable history of use. It's been used in virtually every aircraft orientation. It's been used when the aircraft was upside down. It's been used up to about 187 knots successfully.
Wow.
And so people almost always walk away without a scratch. So yeah, I'm a huge proponent of the parachute. And a lot of people kind of poo-poo that and go, oh, well, I don't want to be out of control and so on. But I think that control is really an illusion. You're not really fully in control because you really don't know what that surface is going to be like that you're touching on, and you don't know how much landing distance you really have when you head down to some arbitrary field.
I have to ask a question, Max. You've obviously flown the SR-22. Have you ever pulled that particular handle? And if you haven't, have you ever thought you'd love to just pull it just to see what it's like?
Well, here in the U.S., we have the Fifth Amendment, so I can claim the Fifth and say I choose not to answer that question.
Okay, fair enough.
No, I'm kidding. I'm totally joking. No, people often ask me if I have pulled the handle, and I have not, which I think is partially luck and partially just staying ahead of the aircraft and not getting into a situation where I had to. I have pulled it in a simulator, kind of a full motion simulator, so I have that experience doing it, and I wouldn't hesitate to do it if I thought that were my best option. Interestingly, about 1% of the fleet have. Is that right? Am I getting that number correct? Yes. So yeah, a little bit over 1% of the fleet has had the parachute pulled, which is kind of surprising to me. I would have thought it'd be a smaller number than that.
Yeah.
Any questions from you, Nev?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, Max, in terms of being a CFI or getting to be a CFI, how long did it take you to get that qualification and the license?
So I worked on it over a summer. I think I probably started in late June, and then I finished up in early September. There is no minimum number of hours to do it. And so what you're really, so getting the flight instructor rating is very different than any other pilot rating because it's a lot less about demonstrating to the examiner that you can do A, B, and C. It's more about demonstrating that you can teach the examiner A, B, and C, and also simultaneously fly and talk, which is hard for some people to do without practicing. And so I would say for the CFI rating, a much larger percentage of the time is just based on self-study, getting to know all the huge core of knowledge that's required, and the actual flying part is proportionally smaller. But I'll tell you, one of the challenges was just getting used to flying in the right seat. I grossly underestimated how different the world looks from the right seat versus the left seat, and the first couple hours of landings terrified me. I mean, I still remember at one point in the right seat, and as I was landing, reaching over and grabbing the left set of controls to land the airplane using the more familiar controls that were on the left. So, I wouldn't encourage anybody to just go up on the right seat by themselves to see what it's like.
No.
That's really interesting, isn't it?
It's a very different view.
Yeah, but no, I just imagine that the whole perspective just looks completely different. And as you're coming into land, as you get closer to the runway threshold, you think, actually, this picture is not what I'm used to seeing at all.
Yeah, exactly. So that to me was the biggest challenge, was just getting comfortable in the right seat. Now I switch back and forth and, don't really have a preference.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Max.
So Lane Street has asked in the chat room, Max, about, he said about your total hours. What are your total hours? I mean, is there a kind of a rough guess of, you must have thousands of hours in the logbook.
It's over 8,000. I don't know the exact number, but somewhere in that ballpark. And most of those have been accrued in the last 15, 16 years. So when I got my CFI in 2001, I had under 1,000 hours. So been doing an average of probably 500 hours a year since then. Sometimes more, sometimes less.
Wow, that's just a few more than. Those,
a few more than you've got, certainly. Now, going back to where we were talking about caps, actually, Masha was saying that you may have a comment about this, actually, but Masha was saying in the chat room here, I chatted to someone who was training on a caps aircraft, not a Cirrus. He said that his instructors told him that if you ever pull the chute, you never pull the chute because you can always land, and the caps would completely total the aircraft. I mean, is that true? Is that something that you can... Can it be put back?
I don't know.
Okay, he's never pulled one. That's why.
Well, no. I mean, there may be other aircraft that you might worry more about pulling it. I've never heard of that. I've interviewed the head of the company that makes the parachute, and it's had very reliable use in all aircraft that I'm aware of. But I think there are a lot of people who are a little scared of the parachute and unfamiliar with it and reticent to use it. So there's a lot of kind of negative talk out there about it. I think mostly by salesmen of other aircraft that don't have parachutes.
Fair enough. Yeah. Lane actually says caps is more to save the people on board, not necessarily the airplane. So I mean,
I see. Well, that is an interesting point. Yeah. So using the parachute does diminish the value of the aircraft.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, one of the questions I was going to ask you, Max, is after. Obviously, if an incident happens, you have to pull the chute, and the aircraft, floats back to Earth. Is that aircraft generally then a write-off, or can it be, repair, or is that it? Is that the end of days? Yeah,
so originally they thought they were all going to be write-offs. They've put about 20% of them back into to operation. So, depending on how much damage occurred, they can repair them. Most people are just kind of sitting and waiting to see which aircraft will be the first to have pulled its parachute twice.
Yes. Good point.
So going on to
that's another question.
Yeah, I've got another question.
Go back into service.
Yeah.
Oh, hello, telephone.
Hello,
right.
telephone. Carry on.
Richard King's asking a question actually in the chat room here. He's asking, what's your Max? What has been your funniest moment with a student?
Oh dear, I can't think of one per se.
Okay.
All I can tell you is that usually I'm up there having fun at the client's expense.
Okay.
That's what I always tell them, is that we can make jokes, but they have to be at their expense.
Fair enough.
So I'm usually cracking jokes, and I was just flying with somebody the other day who was really a little nervous and self-conscious, and so I try and use that as a technique to keep the atmosphere a little bit light. So generally, folks in the airplane and I are having a great time. We're usually just laughing and carrying on, and it's a lot of fun.
Evan Shue in the chat room, Max, has asked, have you flown the new Lycoming powered SR-20?
No, but I expect to pretty soon. That was introduced in 2017, so it's a pretty new model. I would expect it's going to have slightly better performance. It's a 215 horsepower engine versus 200 horsepower. So yeah, it should climb a little bit better. It might be a little bit faster.
Well, I'll never get a chance to fly one myself, but there we go.
At the rate you're going, you're never going to get to fly your Cessna 150 again.
I know. I need to find a job. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Anyway, so glass cockpit stuff. Obviously, you've written a few books, Max, on the glass cockpit kind of thing. Where did all that begin?
So I went to the Cessna factory back in 2005, I guess. We went to pick up a Cessna 206, and I went through was a week-long training course on the Garmin G1000, and they've shortened it up considerably since then. But at that point in time, the system had only been out a year. It was not well known by most people. I taped, these are back in the days of audio tape recorders. I taped a number of the sessions, came home with 20 pages of notes, and I literally was sitting right here at this desk where I'm right now thinking, why does this seem so hard? I think I'm a smart guy. Why am I not getting this? And I kind of thought about it, and I realized, there aren't any really good training materials out there. And then I thought, oh, rats, someone's going to have to write one. And so, that became the beginning of my Garmin G1000 book.
And it's on Amazon as well. You can actually go on Amazon and buy
cool.
Max's book, which is pretty cool. So is it the fifth edition you've got now, Max?
It is, yeah, and that's about the sixth printing as well. So one cycle I didn't update it, but yeah, there've been a number of updates because the Garmin G1000 just continues to change. The rate of change was much higher in the early years, and it's slowed down. And then I went ahead and added information about the Cirrus Perspective, which was introduced back in 2008, and it's kind of like the G1000 but with additional features. So all that's now combined in the same book.
So obviously, Max, in the years you've been flying, you've obviously flown, such mediocre aircraft like me, of the 150, 172, with old-fashioned steam gauges, and you've obviously moved on to bigger and better things such as the Cirruses. And come on, you must admit, you must love to get back into one of the old steam gauge GA aircraft just for fun.
And I do fly them from time to time. Probably not all that often. I'll tell you, here in the San Francisco Bay Area, we have a high density of general aviation traffic, so we're constantly, looking for other airplanes in the windshield and the side windows and so on. Most of the glass cockpit aircraft here have traffic awareness systems.
TCAS.
Most of the round gauge aircraft do not. And so I automatically have a preference right there to have a system that kind of yells at me and goes, traffic, traffic, and helps me spot to airplanes that I might not have seen.
Yes. Shorty Cosgrove in the chat room is asking, what is your favourite glass cockpit?
Probably the one I'm flying at the moment. Now that's not strictly true. I would say the Garmin Perspective and the Cirrus Perspective and the Garmin G1000s are probably the favorite. The Avidynes have about probably 80% of the features, and I think they're still an excellent value. Some of the newer avionics I haven't flown as much with. The Garmin 650s and 750s, I'm still getting my feet wet on those. So it's each one is a new beast and requires more study. So I think people probably like the ones they're most familiar with.
So moving on to the future then, Max, what's the future hold for Max Trescott? What are the plans you've got in place?
Gotta say, I'm pretty comfortable doing what I'm doing, but the one thing I'd still like to do that I haven't done yet is to fly the Cirrus Jet. So I'm looking forward to the day when I can get a type rating in the Cirrus Jet and do some teaching for new Cirrus Jet owners around the country.
Oh wow! So we're going to ask you one last question, Max, before we round up the show, and it's a question that everyone will know. We ask all our guest pilots on the show. I didn't put it in the show notes, so we thought we'd
surprise you, which is a bit harsh.
Which is really harsh.
Yeah.
Can I get my deer in the headlights look now?
Yeah, absolutely. I should. Yeah, absolutely.
So Max, given the chance to fly any aircraft in the world, either be it retired or still flying, and you were given the chance to hop in and take it around the circuit now, what would that aircraft be? Albeit military or commercial or GA?
I think it would still be the Cirrus Jet. I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah.
Really? We haven't definitely had that.
No, we had that one. No, definitely not.
We've had Spitfires, Concords.
Were you guys placing bets on this? What
yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
absolutely.
We've all lost. So I think we have to give the money to charity now. I think that's how it works. But,
well, let me guess. So somebody must have guessed the Mustang P51.
Yeah. That's
that would be
general one. Yeah,
absolutely.
Someone must have guessed. I don't know. What would the other guesses be?
I would have either Concorde is a really popular one for some. Spitfire as well.
Yeah.
That's another one. It's not, as I say, it's the question is usually sort of like not one that you're type rated to fly, but like literally anything. If you could just sit in the controls and have a go of any aircraft that's ever existed, what would you most love to have a fly of?
Sure. Let me tell you what the most unusual thing I've flown then.
Cool. I
have time in one of the Goodyear blimps.
Oh no way!
Yeah,
it's definitely random. Yeah.
Flying those blimps is really amazing. They don't have dual controls. There's just one kind of wicker basket chair, and the pilot climbs out, and so now the blimp is flying itself, and then you climb in, and it's just remarkably unresponsive. I just love it how
just
to me it was thought it was like kind of flying a pig, holding onto each ear. When you want to turn left, you grab the pole on the left ear. I mean, literally to turn this, you just push the pedals. But when you push them, you have to count to about 3 seconds before you see any response or movement from the airship. So that was a fun, different experience that most people don't get to do. I mean, if you think about it, there are more people that have flown F-15 fighters than have flown the Goodyear Blimp.
Well, that is very true. That is definitely.
And I have to ask the question just for the benefit of the listeners in the chat room, Max. Boeing or Airbus?
Oh no, you can't ask that question. No, bad man.
You guys, I'm confused. What's a Boeing and what's an Airbus? You have to tell me.
Do you know what? There is a career in politics waiting for you somewhere, Max.
I knew we got Max on here for a reason.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I know you guys know a lot about airliners, but I'm a GA guy and do a GA podcast, so you're going to have to help me out here.
That's fair enough. Do you know what? That is the best answer we've ever had to that question ever, Max. So well done, you. So that serves you right, Carlos. Moving on.
Captain Al, I can almost see Captain Al in the chat room
melting,
rubbing his hands together.
Indeed. Well, Max, I'm afraid we're sort of running out of time here. It has been a real honour to have you on our very humble show. We are truly honoured that you've managed to squeeze us in. And just give your podcast a quick plug so that we can, so that if they don't know about it, how can they get hold of it?
Oh, sure. Yeah, Aviation News Talk, where finer podcasts are found, or just go to aviationnewstalk.com.
Very
fantastic.
Good, very good. And seriously, we mentioned it earlier in the show. If you haven't had a listen already, their latest episode, which is talking about the ATC privatisation, is just a must listen. It really is.
Get
quite
it on your
list.
list.
Very much so.
It's on my list of 42 podcasts I listen to.
Right, okay, good.
So,
yeah, splendid. Do you get time to listen to them now that you're unemployed?
I certainly do. I'm self-employed, I'll have you know.
My
I run my own business, young man.
Okay, yeah.
So before we wrap up the show, don't forget we're going to make quick plug. Obviously, this show will go out probably after the
sort of Sunday,
after
I think,
the moment.
Yeah,
but for anyone who's in the chat room who is going to be in the UK on Sunday, don't forget me and Matt and Nev and a whole host of listeners from around the UK and Europe are going to be at the Duxford Flying Legends Air Display at the Imperial War Museum at Duxford. We're going to be there on Sunday.
Yep.
Incredibly early.
We just want to be there. We want to beat the rush into the car park, basically.
So we'll be there. So for those of you who are listening, and hopefully we'll see as many of you there as we can.
Do you know what I'm most looking forward to? Because one of the few people we haven't met is the lovely Myla, because we've met Masha and we've met loads, but it's really exciting to meeting the lovely Myla. In fact, actually, Owen, I think you're meeting her possibly tomorrow. I think you were originally planning to, weren't you? Or are you now flying?
I'm not too sure. I'm going to have to talk to Myla about that.
Okay, right. Okay. Oops.
And
well done, me.
Moving on. And moving on the following weekend on Saturday the 15th. So for those of you listening, plenty of time to get yourselves there. Although I think the tickets sold out quite a long while ago.
Okay, good.
But next Saturday, which is the 15th of July, I will be at the Royal International Air Tattoo at RAF Fairford.
And guess who he's
in
going
Gloucestershire.
with?
And Matt's not coming with me.
I'm not coming. No. I'm not going.
I'm actually going to spend some quality time with my father.
Wow.
Which is going to be
what a
awesome.
very good. Does he like aeroplanes too?
Dad does actually. Yeah, Dad does love his aircraft.
Why is he not sitting here? Why have I got?
I don't think my dad would do he'd never do an audio podcast or a visual one.
It'd be hilarious.
But no, me and my father will be there on the Saturday. So that's next Saturday, 15th of July. Royal International Air Tattoo RAF Fairford. I'm going to have my shirt on. I'm in the usual 14,000 bags and
cameras
tons of camera equipment, recording equipment, probably being carried by my father actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Indeed.
But we'll be there Saturday. So hopefully we'll see some of you guys and girls along there. Come and give me a shout, a poke, a nudge, a prod.
So next week's going to be a little bit strange because Carlos is not going to be here, although I am, because I've moved house and I don't have any broadband. So I'm going to have to come to the house. Yeah, I know, absolutely. So I'm going to have to come to Carlos's house while he's away in order to do the live show. And Carlos will be one of the many people who will hopefully be joining me next week via Skype. So yes, absolutely. Normal show. If you want to catch the live show, we more or less usually do it on a Friday night starting at 7 p.m, give or take the odd 15-minute here and there, depending on what happens. And so we're if you want to catch the live show, that is every Friday, and we usually start about 7 p.m.
And on the note in the chat room that Thomas Mandrakey's just made, yes, there are still spaces for our 200th show.
Very much so, yes.
In January, on the 20th of January next year. If anyone who is in the UK or who wants to fly in from anywhere in the world,
absolutely. We've got a couple of very, very exciting people joining us, haven't we?
We have.
I don't think we're allowed to say, but
no, we're not going to say.
No, okay.
But we have got two. We have got a couple of people flying in from the US. Actually,
we have.
We're not going to say who it is.
Yeah.
But they're going to join us on the 20th of January. Like I said, we're going to be at the simulator, the 737 fixed base simulator in London.
Over at MP
Simulations. We're going to be there, and we still have spaces. So if anyone wants to come down there with us on the day, please do send us an email as quick as you can, because they will fill up very soon.
They will. And to do that, please send your communications to podcast@planetalkinguk.com. That's podcast@planetalkinguk.com. Entry for that is via email only, so it's podcast@planetalkinguk.com. If you want to catch up with the show, then obviously take yourself to our various social media feeds. On Twitter, our handle is @planetalkinguk, and it's facebook.com/planetalkinguk. Or if you'd like to have a look at our newest member of the team, why not take yourself to www.planetalkinguk.com, where there's a lovely little photograph of, I believe you were in some foreign hotel, if memory serves. You were actually away on one of your jollies, weren't you?
I was in Croatia, actually.
You were,
doing a down-the-line interview for an audiovisual show, and I just happened to give Mrs. Nev a camera to take a picture.
Right, well, indeed, and he's branded up there and everything with the company that he works for. But I know. My personal thanks, obviously, must go to, because while I haven't got any broadband, there's this charming little Irishman that's been doing me a massive favour by editing the show for me, because he has got broadband, and I'm probably going to be calling on it. Yeah, just about. Yeah, I'm probably going to be calling on his services again this week, but next week I will have it all back. So my personal thanks goes to the lovely Eoin, who's been helping me with the editing recently as well.
No problem at all.
So we are going to say a massive thanks to everyone who's joined us in the chat room tonight live for the
busy.
show. Been loads of people in there. There's been some different areas of chat in the chat room this week. It's actually kind of left the food area, and it's gone into various.
Well, that makes a change.
Different sort of tangents.
It's normally all about food.
But we have had actually Airplane Geek royalty in there this evening, as Brian Coleman's been in the chat room.
Did we? The legend is
exactly.
I think he's been in there keeping an eye on Max, actually.
Probably.
That's why he's been in there.
And probably he's going to report that I didn't mention and plug the Airplane Geeks podcast enough.
What's that, the Airplane Geeks podcast?
I've never heard of it.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So thanks to everyone who's joined us in the chat room and for taking the time out on your Friday evening for joining us in the chat room and on the show tonight. It's been great to see you all in there as always. And like I said before we wrap up as well, massive thanks to Max Trescott for taking time out of his day to come and appear on the show this week. Max, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today, so I want to say a big thanks to you.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed being with the crew here. So thanks so much to you, Carlos, and Matt, and fun to meet Nev and Eoin as well.
So it's www.airplanegeeks.com, by the way, just in case anybody doesn't want to get. We don't want our guests to end up in trouble, do we? There we are.
Exactly.
But everybody that listens to this will already be familiar with the Airplane Geeks, so that shouldn't be a problem. Well, guys, seriously, that's where we have to bring episode number 172 to a close. From all of us here in the studio, it has been so much fun. Everybody say goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.